Gill, Pastor Paul Begley, we're live on the air. How are you?
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
I'm doing great, doing great. Oh, we're just so glad you're with us today. We have a great crowd of folks that are here and very, very much anticipating this broadcast, this show today. There's so much going on, and so we're so glad to have you.
Did you get my emails on the data I sent you?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, I have in front of me all of your graphics. Okay.
Okay, great.
So we're ready to start on this. Anytime you're ready here, I need the very first one you have here. First of all, let's sum it up this way, folks. Gill Broussard is an astronomer, and he's been studying for years the planet 7X, the theory of that, of course, Planet X, Nibiru, different names people use, dwarf star, there's all kinds of names are used. NASA, this week, we found out that NASA in 1983 had held a press conference in which two NASA scientists said they had discovered a planet on the edge of our solar system, a planet that they called Planet X. These were two scientists, and they made this announcement. It's 1983, the Washington Post. I've read the article this week. Now, last Friday, there was scientists in Chile with superpower telescopes confirmed twice of two different planets that they say was, again, on the edge of our solar system in the constellation of Orion. It's the same place that in 1983 that the two NASA scientists said they saw this huge planet, larger than Jupiter, on the edge of our solar system that they called Planet X. But in 1992 or so, when the lead scientist of NASA died, we never heard NASA ever talk about Planet X again. Well, Gill Broussard has studied historical data from the Chinese and from the Europeans and has overlaid their findings of things they've seen in the sky and sights and signs, and has overlaid it with biblical historical data of events that happened in the Bible and have matched them that something definitely happened. The question is what caused it. He has been working and calculating relentlessly, and we look forward to hearing his information. I know Gill has also been saying that we may see Planet 7X by the spring of next year, but if we're going to see it, we may be able to start seeing it in December of this year. So we want to get caught up to where you left us off with that, Gill, and we'll let you take it from there as it relates to. Let's ask the first question about 1983 and NASA saying they saw Planet X in 1983. What's your take on that?
Well, we had Dr. Harrington that earlier than that gave a scientific report. I have a copy of that.
Okay.
There is a person out there whose initials are MM that are misquoting the scientific paper. He's going out there telling the public that he had agreed with Dr. Stitchin's 3,600 years. And you can go see an interview that Stitchin did with Robert Harrington on my YouTube channel, Planet 7X, where I point out exactly where he's stating that.
Of a celestial body which you, I think, named in that paper an intruder.
Yes.
Which may have collided with or somehow turned on their side both Uranus and Pluto.
It did a lot more than that, as a matter of fact. In that paper, we hypothesized that this intruder passed very close to Neptune, that it dislodged one of what we then think were many satellites of Neptune, and one of them became the planet Pluto. We actually think Pluto was an escaped satellite of Neptune. This will also take the orbit of Triton, the big satellite of Neptune, and reverse it. We'll take the orbit of the satellite Nereid and extend it outwards. we can produce all of the observed aspects of the satellite system of Neptune plus Pluto's orbit just with this one single intruding planet.
I think, Dr. Harrington, you have a pretty good picture, at least in your own mind, of what we are talking about, a big planet, a small planet.
Well, if it is in the kind of orbit that we describe here, it would have to be a planet that would have a mass something like 3 to 5 times the mass of the Earth. This would put it intermediate between the gaseous planets like Uranus and Neptune and the terrestrial planets that we have in the inner part of the solar system. So if this planet turns out to be in a 3,600-year orbit, then its mass would be correspondingly larger. But we're talking about something that's a perfectly reasonable kind of planet. It looks like a good, nice planet, small enough that it's not going to be completely enveloped in gas, so it's perfectly capable of supporting life forms of one kind.
And what he's exactly stating, he's stating that it cannot be 3,600 years because it would have to be many times larger than Jupiter, and that the object that he's talking about is closer to 6 times the diameter of Earth. And in his white paper report, which the same person with the initials MM points out, that he claims is in his report that he says Dr. Harrington is giving 3,600 years. In the report, he says 1,100 years. Okay? Approximately.
Okay.
Okay? This was some guidelines that they're using to try to find it. Guidelines, you have to start somewhere. They're not factual until you have some more data or even a sighting. So Dr. Harrington was pretty much the closest and the one that brought it to the front page with real something with close to real data as he got, and if you look at also at Dr. Stitchin's, he uses a clay tablet where he says this is planets and such, and that the way the king was drawn so large compared to the other people, that obviously the king was an alien. Well, in almost all cultures of that time period, even Egyptians and so on, always drew the kings larger than life. Okay? That's a common motif on the cultures of that time period. Clay tablet that he's showing that he claims are planets is actually the sun in the eclipse mode, and that's stars, not planets. You can look at the similar thing called the Nibiru sky disk, where it's much clearer, and it shows that almost the exact same pattern of stars with the sun in the eclipse mode. So there's more than one way of looking at Stitchin's data, and other scholars do not qualify Stitchin's work. But Stitchin is the first one, pretty much, that brought this planet into the limelight of the people. We got to give him credit for that.
All right. What year? What year did he bring it? What year was that?
I'd have to look up. I know Dr. Harrington died in 1993.
Okay.
The Voyager and Pioneer probe of NASA, according to my data, most likely made instrument contact with the object in 1992 of December, because after that point they went silent.
Because in 1983, the two scientists of NASA was Baumgartner and Hawk, and they're the ones that said they discovered Planet X, what they call Planet X, on the right on the edges of our solar system, in the constellation of Orion. So, are you saying Sketchings was ahead of them? That he was before their discovery?
Well, the thing is that this object causes an anomaly on opposite sides of the universe. That's why they sent the first two probes opposite of each other, 180 degrees apart.
Okay.
And then they noticed that one satellite was picking up speed and one was slowing down. The one going to Orion was slowing down. That meant it's not in that direction. the one going to Sagittarius is speeding up.
Okay.
That means gravity's pulling it towards there. So that answered that there were two anomalies. Okay, that's what these observers were noticing, that there was anomalies in the orbits of planets that were perturbed, warped by unknown, they call it gravity, but actually now we know it's unknown magnetic forces. Gravity is the weaker force. The magnetic forces are much, much stronger, many magnitudes greater.
Matter of fact, that's
And
we had
have
Mike.
Electric universe.
Right, we had Mike around the world on Tuesday, and that's exactly what he said. That gravity is not what holds everything together. Gravity does keep us on the ground, but it's not gravity that's holding everything together. That's a more of a magnetic force, which is what you're saying. We now know that.
Correct. If we were to take the same stories of the biblical and use the astronomy model 15 years ago with the gravity ruled universe, none of our models would have worked.
Right.
Pertaining to the biblical stories. But using a magnetic universe, we have an exact match. And we can answer 14 instances in the Bible that proves out in models. And that happens to match the same model as the Chinese. This is the same model we're taking, that same overlay, and applying it to these stories. We have an object that comes in at the end of August or beginning of September, circles the sun, and exits in the month of Passover. Whether it's March or April, we will find out soon. But
When you say that, when you say we'll find
overlay pattern.
When you say we're going to find out soon, I think you and I talked before, and this is the third or fourth time that we've talked in the last year, kind of keeping an eye on what you've been talking about. And your YouTube channel, folks, Gill's YouTube channel is Planet 7X. You can check it out. He's got some great videos there, very interesting information there. And you said that if we may start to see this thing in December. So, and there's been a lot of people, two sun dogs, a lot of different things people have seen with their cameras, and there's been reflections, there's been a lot of different things, and there's been some folks doing hoaxes and different things. But at the end of the day, Gil, have we seen anything other than what these team of scientists in Chile seen with these superpower telescopes? Has there been anything else seen that could say that Planet 7X is out there or is going to be going by next March or April? Have we seen anything yet?
Keep in mind that they didn't see this object yet. It's like a radar image, per se. They have yet to focus a telescope on it to find it.
I agree.
And from from what I've read so far, whether or not the articles that I read were correct or not. And they're not exactly sure on the distance, whether or not it's a large object very far out or a small object very close.
Right.
They've made an estimate that they think it's 1.5 times the diameter of Earth. But
we don't know.
From the article that I read, they were unsure of it at the moment.
Right. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at your. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Gil.
Well, from the data that they gave us on the distance on where they were estimating it, put it around Uranus, at the typical speed, maximum speed that the sun can drag an object to you. That meant it's at least 10 to 12 years away, so that's not our object.
So you're saying what these guys saw in Chile on these objects that they saw, infrared, okay, haven't focused the telescope on it, but they do have infrared, two objects that are right on the edges of our solar system, that's not Planet 7X. Those are two objects, let's say, but those are at least 10 to 12 years out from if they're coming in this direction. Right. Okay. Let's pick up
the data from the Chinese gives us the orbital path. It mirrors the biblical accounts of 14 incidences. It has to come in from a certain constellation. It has to come in from Sagittarius. This is not viewed in the Sagittarius region, and it doesn't seem to be on the planetary plane of Earth. It might be, but I don't think it is.
Okay, let's say if it is,
nothing to worry about.
If it is, it's still 10 to 12 years out there. If it is, and it may not even be. And then to your point is, so it's not in the theory that you've been working this whole time. It's not what you're been looking for. It's not coming from the right direction, and it's not at the right time, years or timing.
They had mentioned a velocity of over 2 million miles per hour, which I find kind of mysterious. You can, and why visually is just one of the ways that we rely on that object gets there. Look at the volcanic activity and the earthquakes. They're outrageous. They're in an exponential rise.
Right.
That if you look at all the other indicators, we have a problem. These are exactly the signs that we would see as an inbound body. We have perturbations of planets and comets. Those are recent reports. Something is warping the orbits of comets, and that can only be a planetary body. And the planet's on the opposite side of Earth.
All right.
Where
Gil,
these comets are being warped at.
all right, Gil, hang on a second.
What is it?
Gil, you've got some these graphics here. Let's walk us through here this presentation.
If you look at page 11 there that I showed you, it shows you how they can block our view. This is laboratory tests showing how they can cloak an object that's right in front of you by bending the light around an object. And it shows a person's hand where it looks as if there's a hole in a person's hand or a pencil in front of this laser, and you can't see the section that's in front of it because it's bending the light around and capturing the view behind it and portraying it in front of it. And this is done today, and our government thought it's 30 to 50 years ahead of this.
So let me ask you.
So it's quite easy.
So you're saying that even if Planet 7X is in view right now, let's say it could be viewed right now, that the United States government can use this new technology to show you what's behind. It's like putting my hand up, and yet they have the technology right now to bend light to see what's behind my hand, and then to put that in front of my hand, and so my hand becomes invisible. So you're saying they have the ability to bend light, and so when people look up through telescope or look up through the lenses there, it don't show the object. But the stars are all in the right spot, the constellations are correct, and it looks like there's nothing there, but it could actually be there because that technology does exist right now.
Yes, if you look at our bonus 2 video, we showed multiple technologies. The one that's most applicable in space environment would be the lasers. You can put these lasers on satellites, and you can use solar sails as reflectors, and you can actually bend the light where once it comes around to our view that you cannot see an object. Now, are they actually doing that? Only thing I can say is I've talked to high-level engineers and scientists working with the government that when I asked them that basic question, does technology exist to block our view? They gave me one short answer, yes. But they would not expound how.
No, they didn't want to share. They don't want to share with you.
The laboratory tests showed it.
Right, they do not want it. The government's not going to tell you, Gil, or anybody else how they have this technology and how it works. They're only confirming that they have the ability, folks, to bend light so that it looks like the object is not there, and what you're seeing is what's behind the object. And so that is correct. That's what's behind the object, but they can do it so that it bend the light so it looks like the object's not there. And so the government confirmed that with you. They have that technology.
the card that they will play out before they will allow us to see it is you'll see some form of emergency that they will implement Homeland Security or martial law on the people.
So
You have a bank bail-in and rationing of fuel and food.
strong
When you see those
delusion.
three things,
Strong delusion,
You
Gil. I
can
mean,
start
this
looking
is
up.
this is what the Bible said. There would be this new world order at the end here would start bringing a strong delusion. People would believe a lie and be damned. This is how they will convince people to go ahead and take the mark of the beast, because they will bring them a strong delusion. They will be able to deceive them with technology and to cause them to damn their own souls. And so what you're saying is that this type of technology that could bring a grand, strong delusion is capable right now. It is capable to be done.
without a doubt, the technology the government has in multiple fields technology that's 30 to 50 years ahead of us right now in the public realm.
Wow.
These videos I'm showing is what's in the public realm.
Right.
They're doing this in the public realm right now. The video that I'm showing you, this is a snapshot.
Yes.
And it shows what's presently being done in laboratories. Well, you just scale it up and you can do this.
Yes.
They have space-based lasers. They already have that.
Yes.
So it's not hard for them to do this type of
The video Gil is talking about, folks, he's talking about the video Bonus 2. It's on his YouTube channel called Planet 7X. So you can watch this video after the broadcast. He will show you in that video, it's called Bonus 2. That's the video. He put it up not long ago. And you'll be able to watch that video, and it will show you the technology that has the ability to make things look invisible when they're not. And they can do this for weaponry here on Earth, but they can definitely use it in the sky. We all know about Project Bluebeam. We know there's all types of way to manipulate things. And so what they're showing you, what Gil shows you in the video Bonus 2, is technology that's 30 to 50 years old. In other words, they are 30 to 50 years ahead of that right now. So believe me, they can bring a strong delusion. They could hide an asteroid headed right for the Earth is going. Read your Bible. The Bible says there's going to be, it's like a mountain in Revelation 8:8. It's like a mountain burning. It will hit the earth with such force, it will kill a third of everything here. And right now, our government has the ability to hide. If that thing was coming, and if it was actually on its way and was destined to hit the earth next March, they have not shared it with you. They have hid it, and you wouldn't know it. That you would not even know it right now, and that could be the case. I'm not saying it is, but I'm telling you that's the technology. They can hide what is coming, and at some point, men will find it out, and that's where Jesus said there'll be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. Distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts will fail them for fear of what's coming on the earth. Fear. Why? Because something they'll see that will be so impossible to stop, they will just fall over dead in their fear. That's those who aren't ready. That's not me or you, okay? That's not me or you. Gil, let's go into this. You've got to show us here. We've got these graphics. Tell us what this first one is. What looks like the Hezekiah seal, maybe. Let me just hold it up here. What are we looking at here, Gil?
Well, remember Hezekiah and Jonah? They were in the same time period. Remember Yeshua said the only sign that a wicked and adulterous generation will have was the sign of Jonah.
Yes.
40-day warning. So that's alluding that the majority of the earth would not have a warning at 40 days. That would be the majority. But I think his people will have a warning slightly above that because they're paying attention.
Right.
But the rest of the world will be waiting for the government to announce to them that this is a real object. Now, this seal was found, and it has on it where the inscription says, belonging to Hezekiah, son of Asher, king of Judah. And if you look at it carefully, it shows a winged disc in the center of it.
I see that.
All right. Remember how I showed you on page 3 of the graphic where I showed the shadow went backward, how Earth tilted 26 to 28 degrees, just like the Nibiru disk of Joseph of Egypt. It shows that Earth tilted 23 to 26 degrees. I can prove Earth tilted 4 times in its history now. And in Hezekiah's seal, he was given 15 more years to live. On his seal, he put this winged disc. The wings just show movement or flight in the sky, the disc showing our planet. That it was significant, and it changed the calendars to 360, 365 and a quarter days. So that's additional confirmation of what I was telling you, that this planet passed during Hezekiah and Jonah's time period.
And here's the, so that's the seal. That seal has just been discovered not long ago, the Hezekiah seal with this winged looking object. And here's what Gill's talking about with this, that the earth actually tilted on its axis. Is that what you're saying, Gill? That's what made Hezekiah's sundial, or we call it Hezekiah's sundial, but it was actually when he looked through that window that the sun actually moved 10 steps backwards, which is impossible, folks.
Yes, in the Hebrew, it actually literally says steps. It doesn't say a sundial.
Right.
So if the steps are facing north and south, and a window with the shadow of the sun causing the sun rays and the shadow of the window, for that to move exactly 10 steps, the earth would have to tilt 26 to 28 degrees. The calculations work out.
Now, let me
proves out.
Let me help people just in layman's terms. There are folks saying, I don't get the point. Here's the point. It's impossible for the sun to move backwards unless the earth shifted. And in the Bible, the sun, the reflection, I should say, the shadow of the sun went backwards 10 steps or 10 degrees, if you will. And for that to happen, the earth had to tilt. And it did happen. It's in the Bible. It was a significant sign. And Gil, why did the earth tilt, in your opinion?
Because the object came within midway between the moon and the earth again. This has happened 4 times in its past. And the magnetic attraction between the north and south pole causes the two objects to tilt. It takes about 6 hours for Earth to tilt, and another 6 hours for it to go back to its normal position.
So the only thing you're saying that could cause the earth to do that would have to be an object going by so big and so powerful that it would tilt the earth.
You see, this object can either pass to the right or to the left of Earth.
Right.
If it passes to the left of Earth, Earth does not slow down in its rotation. It only tilts. If it passes to the right of us, then Earth passes through the plasma tail that shuts down the energy going into the north and south pole like it did during Joshua's long day.
Okay.
And Earth will slow down 4.5 to 5.5%, compounded hourly till it comes to a stop within 24 to 28 hours. And you have an extended day of 12 hours. And then there was a meteor shower right after that on Joshua's battle where it only hit the enemy soldiers. There was no meteor shower for Hezekiah, so it came to the left of us, causing only a tilt.
Okay, so
5 months later, when Earth passed through the second debris trail, that's when the 185,000 soldiers died of Assyria.
Right.
That was poised to attack Jerusalem. That's how they got but it says it happened at night. You see, the meteor shower in March is in the daytime. The meteor shower at the end of August is in the nighttime. They're opposite.
Okay, so folks,
the path of the debris.
So what you're saying is, when this planet 7X went by the Earth the first time, during Hezekiah's time, it tilted the Earth enough that the sun's shadow that came through the window there went back 10 steps, which is an absolute major sign to the King Hezekiah. Then the earth had to settle back in. It took several hours for it to happen. Then 150 days later, or whatever it is, whenever you go back through the debris field, not then, but the next time that Planet X comes by, during Joshua's longest day, folks, you have to understand, the sun stayed up for 24 hours and did not go down. That's impossible. The only way the sun would stay up there would mean the earth had to move and flow with the sun and not let the sun go down. So, and that happened. It's in your Bible. And what Gill is saying is the only way that could happen is for the planet 7X to have passed by the earth on the other side, which means it had made another orbit. So this orbiting of this planet 7X, it's like an oblong orbiting. It comes in, and that's why it's not a consistent exactly 333 years. It could be 319 years. It could be 384 years. It's in that ballpark as it swings by, but it's coming at an oblong orbit. Is that correct, Gill?
Correct. It has a erratic orbit because there's too many things that are influencing its orbital speed, because it can run into moons or other planets. That's why Ceres was destroyed. That's why we had 3 days of darkness during the Exodus instead of during Yeshua's sacrifice. We only had 3 hours of darkness during a
crucifixion,
during the eclipse.
Now, question. Wait.
Anytime you see in the Bible a double eclipse, that can't be done in the natural.
Right.
It has to involve a third object.
Okay. Now, having said that, you're saying that Planet 7X could have caused Hezekiah's sun to go back 10 steps. That Planet X could have came by and caused Joshua's longest day. You're saying that Planet X could have been the reason that we had 3 days of darkness during one of the plagues of Egypt during the Exodus, the time of Moses, before he could get the children of Israel out of Egypt. And you're saying that Planet 7X, also coming by again, but coming by on the other side, could have created a double eclipse, which could have caused the earth to go dark for 3 hours when Christ was on the cross. And you went back and checked that against statistical information or recorded data by ancient civilizations in China and other places, and they confirmed something was going on in the sky during the exact same times of those 4 major biblical events. So it's not just a theory here. You're basing your theory of 7X on factual biblical accounts that, and scientifically, as an astronomer, you're saying, and it is doable, Paul, and here's how it's doable. If there is an object that keeps making its way around toward this earth, it always keeps, and each time it creates something. Like in Jonah's day, it created a sign in the heavens for 40 days. Jonah preached, hey, look at the sign. Nineveh, you're going to be destroyed in 40 days. Okay, so each time you're saying this Planet 7X could create those events.
Well, Paul, let me quote a famous astrophysicist.
Okay.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay. He said, this is science. He says, if you can observe phenomenon in space and show that it's repeatable in a model, he says that is science. That means it's following the orbital mechanics, Kepler's law of the planetary motion, and every other rule that we found provable. We have the model because of the Asian astronomers, the Chinese, the Korean, and the Japanese astronomers, of a segment of this orbit that gives us an elliptical path. This same object, when we overlay it into the 14 biblical accounts, these eyewitness accounts, we can build a model that follows the exact storyline. How Earth has slowed down, how the shadow went backwards. How do you get a 3-hour eclipse during Yeshua's sacrifice? How do you get 3 days of darkness during the Exodus? And so on and so on.
14.
We have a model for
14 biblical accounts. You have a model that matches how each thing could happen, and scientifically it is proven it could have happened. There has to be an object. God is using some type of an object, some type of a planet or something dark, something that can swing by and can create and can affect the earth in a way to create these 14 different biblical accounts. Go ahead.
We have a Nibiru sky disk. Remember, this is just not also in the Bible. It's not only also in the Chinese. We have artifacts like the Nibiru sky disk. It's made in Germany. It proves out the Earth tilted 26 to 28 degrees, and with the star pattern it gives us the exact date, and that date lines up mid of the drought of Joseph of Egypt.
Wow.
Remember when Joseph had a dream at age 16? The stars, the sky, and the moon bowed to him?
Yes, I do.
That word sun is actually illuminated body, because you can't see the stars out when the sun is out. So just like in Greek, helios simply means illuminated body. It doesn't necessarily mean the sun. Well, that was age 16. At age 40, the skies did prove it the sky. Because your viewpoint from Earth would be the skies bowing, and the illuminated object is our comet-like planet. And so, unless people would like to say that the ancient German civilizations conspired with the Egyptian and the biblical accounts,
Right.
but yet they didn't know each other yet.
No, they didn't know each other. They couldn't have conspired. All right, Gil, just because of time reasons, I got to move this along a little. Now that you've built a case that there's been 14 biblical accounts that could be scientifically proven that a planet of some sort on some type of orbit has affected the Earth 14 times, and you can match it with biblical accounts, and it makes sense. We're talking about the 6th and 7th seal. I've heard you talk about before in the book of Revelation. Something has to cause a mountain burning like a lamp to hit the Earth. Is it a asteroid that's racing toward us? Has nothing to do with Planet 7X? Or could Planet 7X be going by, bringing a debris trail that could cause Earth to enter into that debris trail and have a cataclysmic collision? Now, that's what people want to know listening right now. That's why people are here right now listening. My question is where are you at with it now? I think you told me you believed scientifically everything you studied, don't have a crystal ball, but somewhere within an 8-year window, we should be having this event. And that this year seemed like to be the year that we would start to see it, and we would have some kind of an encounter next March or April in the spring. Where are you with that right now? How do you feel about that, or what is your take on it?
We're on the edge because we can see possible economic collapse with the Seal 4 just about to happen. And there's a Middle East war brewing.
All right, now wait a minute.
We may not see it we may or may not see it at the end of December. But if not, then I would be looking for it in January, because we're not that far off. But we have to see Seal 3, 4, and 5 happen.
Right.
3 is economic collapse, 4 is a war, and 3 is, Seal 5 is a peace agreement involving Israel in it, and that may happen January 15th, if this date is correct. And I also wanted to point out to you.
Okay.
You can go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, if the date is correct, the 3 things, what you're saying is in the Bible, there's 7 seals. You're saying seal number 3 would be an economic collapse. Seal number 4 is a Middle East war. Seal number 5 is a peace agreement involving Israel, and it has to involve the whole world pretty well. And you're saying that if those 3 things happen, those are 3, 4, and 5, and that could happen, you're saying, here in the next not very short. And the reason you say these things could happen, Gil, is it because man knows what's coming? Or is it because it's just the biblical prophecies that are leading us to seal 6 and 7?
The biblical prophecies are reading more like a newspaper on a day-to-day event.
Right.
This is there's only one person that can tell time ahead of, and that is the Father. And He gave it to Yeshua to give to John.
Yes.
To write this book. There's no way that they could have guessed it. Just like Revelation 12:1, where He gives us an astronomical date. I can tell you without a doubt, it is impossible 2,000 years ago, even if I would have given the software, for them to better pick that date and match this. It's that date, the way they wrote it, could come from the Father to be placed in that text. It's impossible.
So
You have to know the orbital mechanics. And
all
they
right,
didn't know
now,
it.
Gil, if for some reason that it isn't this December, it isn't this January, but that we're close, but we're off a little. What is your take? Could it be off just 1 year? Could we be right back in this situation next year, or is it more like 5 years if we're off a little right now? I mean, can you help me with that?
Well, the Bible clearly says that for a wicked and adulterous generation will have only a sign of Jonah as a warning, which is 40 days. If March 25th is the date, then the Bible says it qualifies that the earth would see it 40 days early. That's around February 15th.
Okay.
I think that's only for the adulterous and wicked, not His people. I'm a firm believer that possibly we'll see it a month or so earlier than that.
That'd be
I
January.
gave I was giving an estimate for December, and I'm close, I believe.
Okay. So
But we may have to go into January before we would see it.
Okay, so let's go. Let's just say. So you're saying, look, it could be that we will actually start to see this sign, the sign of Jonah, the sign of planet 7X. Maybe we will see it sometime in mid-January, anytime between now and mid-January. And if we do, you'll get a real naked eye view of it probably by February 15th, leading us to the March 26th date. If this is the year that the calculations have come together.
Yeah.
And that's
These are the signs that Yeshua said. You will see a sign in the heaven, and earthquakes will rise like the pains of a woman giving birth. We have both of those.
Yeah. Oh, there's no disagreement.
I
There's nobody can disagree with the fact that the Bible's prophecies of what would be happening in the end times, in Matthew 24, in Luke 21, Mark 13, we can see wars, rumors of wars, nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdoms, famines, pestilence, earthquakes, dire places, persecution of Christians going on all over the world. We can see that we're living in the fig tree generation. I mean, I don't think anyone that studies the scriptures know that we got it. We're in the ballpark. We're in the season. We're definitely in the season. So the question is now, if that's the case and we're seeing things come together, could it be that these seals will start breaking here in the next few months, or could it be another 7 years from now before they start breaking? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Economy, yeah. Any economist would tell you that it's nearly impossible for this economy to stand for that long. The vast majority of economists right now are shaking their heads right now. They don't understand why it's still up right now. I don't think we can go another year.
Okay.
And I wanted to show you something before we exit out, that some new evidence
Okay.
that I found in Mauritania, Africa. There's a mountain range which was dissolved away. There's a crater that they first thought was a meteor crater, but they came back and said no, it isn't, because there's no signature of consite, which is a crystalline form when a crater explodes. That this is not a meteor crater.
Is this the pictures
so
you have here? Are we starting with this picture
Correct.
here? Okay.
Right. This is a plasma discharge crater. Plasma discharge forms a flat area crater, and it dissolves mountains. This is about 300 foot deep.
Now, you're saying
right here in about about 25 to 30 miles across.
Now you saying, Gil, that this crater is actually in Africa, that this is the location where it hit? Something hit there?
Yes, a lightning bolt. This is the plasma discharge. Remember when Comet Siding Springs passed near Mars just recently?
Yes, I do.
We have a picture that's page 4. It shows when Comet Siding, which is a small little comet, it lit up Mars. Okay?
Okay, I got it. This is actual.
That showed a plasma discharge between the comet and Mars. Well, for this planet, 7X I call it, for it to pass between the moon and the Earth, there had to have been a discharge when Earth went through its tail, or whenever it got near enough. We have a crater that signifies that. We can see the same type of craters on the moon. If you look on page 10, you can see plasma craters, which the physicists have identified on Venus, Mars, and the moon. Well, these three planets, planet 7X passes near them, and it made electrical discharge craters on them also, because they're not concave, they're flat bottom. And that's the difference between a meteor crater and a plasma
I got it. So a plasma discharge crater. A plasma crater creates a flat, what looks like a flat crater, but it's not down deep into the earth. It's discharge. It's a powerful hit of a bolt of plasma. A crater from a meteorite will literally create a crater that goes down into the earth, and it's quite obviously that something hit the earth that with matter, if you will. So there's a different residue. It leaves a different shape. This is a flat crater compared to a deep crater, which means this was not a crater from a flying asteroid meteorite. This was a crater from a plasma discharge. And you're saying that the same thing happened on the moon when comet sliding spring went by Mars. When it went by Mars, there was an explosion there. It's because it was a plasma discharge. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and
correct.
So I mean,
and this crater, because they cannot explain it, because they don't have the item that would, scientists cause and effect. Well, we're already proven we have a planet that comes around here. Now, where is the effects of a plasma discharge? I found it. It's in Africa, right? That's 25 to 30 miles across. That's a lightning bolt that hit the Earth between the two planets.
Now,
we are going to see this again.
Here's the plasma crater on Mars that Gil's talking about. When the comet sliding spring went by Mars, it released a plasma crater, a plasma charge. It created this crater. This is actual pictures from Mars of a crater. And the crater was caused by a plasma discharge. What Gil is saying is, in Africa, we have almost an identical plasma crater that looks just like the one that was on Mars, which means something went by that could release the same plasma discharge. And if that's the case, and we know that planet 7X, according to Gil, if his theory is correct, went by and caused 14 biblical events. If this just happened, which we got videotape of it, folks. As a matter of fact, he's got a still picture. I'm going to show it to you again. And I'm just trying to help everyone understand what...
I'm in the wrong house.
Yeah. Are you still there, Gil? I hear you. Okay.
He's not sure,
Somebody here?
He's not sure. Yes, I'm sorry, I have to answer the door.
Okay, go ahead while I get the picture of the moon here. Mars, this explosion here, and I have it. Right here it is. All right, so what Gil is saying is this same crater in Africa created by something that went by the Earth and released a plasma discharge, that same crater is on Mars that just in the last year, a that something went by Mars and released a plasma crater exactly like the one in Africa. Well, here's what we know was going by Mars then. The comet sliding spring. And this is actual still shots of, there's Mars, and there's the sliding spring going by. And then there's Mars as the sliding spring gets this close and releases a charge. This is the actual footage. This is the still picture of what it looked like as that comet went by. So his point is this: if this has already happened, if this has happened about a year ago, is this planet on its way toward the Earth right now? And does NASA know it? Does our governments of the world know it? Are they hiding it from us with this bending the light technology? Or is it just they don't know it, and it's about to happen anyway? And what does that mean? Or,
whenever they view the bonus 2 video or bonus 1, whichever.
I think it's bonus 2.
We actually show the video of this plasma, this discharge, the video of Mars and comet sliding springs effects. And I sent you the video for you to take a look at as well.
Is it on?
I know a lot of people out there are having difficulty helping to convince family members that that the Bible is real, and that this event that's fixing to occur on Earth is going to be real. So we had a professional producer of a film produce a video, and that helps break the ice. It doesn't explain everything, but it helps break the ice to a family member.
And did you send that to me? Did you send that to me, Gil, in my emails?
Yes.
Okay, because
I have sent. I sent you the DVD, and
it's in the mail.
Yes.
Okay.
You should have had it already. If they can go to my webpage, planet7x.net, and they can either download it or order the video. We have a 2-for-1 sale for the holidays.
Okay.
For people to give it to their pastors or give it to their other friends that need to know this. The rest of the videos to get educated on this is all free on my YouTube channel, Planet 7X.
Okay.
And they can see the stories of the Bible. But it helps. It's the video to break the ice and explain it, where it opens the door for people to talk to people about it.
And I want to say this, folks, that Gil is saying is that we understand there were 14 major events in the Bible historically that we already know has happened. We don't have to try to explain it to people because it already took place. The problem we have when you're talking the end days is trying to explain to people what we just read to you today, the breaking of these 6th and 7th seals, when things are going to hit the earth. Even though Jesus said it was going to happen, as I've quoted 1,000,000 times in the Gospels, even though John saw it in the book of Revelation, it's tough to try to explain that to family members who don't even believe maybe that the world's ever going to come to an end. This is, they don't understand, they don't believe. And so what Gil is trying to do is trying to help people understand that the Bible, and he's not predicting the day nor the hour. He's not predicting the day or the hour. He is scientifically analyzing what could possibly happen. But what he is saying is the events that the Bible prophesies to happen in Revelation is provable and is going to happen. We can prove it. We know it's going to. It's not a fairy tale. The book of Revelation is not something you throw throw it aside and say, I'm not worried about it. It is going to happen, and they need to know it is, and they need to give their lives to Jesus Christ, to Yeshua, to give their life to Christ, because we are living in the last days. And as Gil says, we may be living in the very, very last days as time is running out. It may be sooner than any of us really understand or know. And that's what you're saying, right, Gil?
Yes. But remember in Revelation when it says the 4 angels hold back the wind?
Yes. Yes, well, I read that today.
The only way for the winds to be held back is if the rotation of the earth is stopped.
Let me read that.
Joshua's long day.
Let me read that, Gil. It's Revelation 7. It's in between the sixth and seventh seals. It says these words in Revelation 7, verse 1. And after these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Now, folks, that is impossible. The wind is always moving right now. It does not stop unless God says, I want to stop it, and he stops it by using something. And what Gil is saying is it is scientifically possible that if Planet 7X goes by, it could cause the wind to stop for a period of time, whatever that is.
When Earth is entering the plasma tail, we will start to slow down 4.5 to 5.5% compounded hourly for the next 24 to 28 hours. And you have Earth stopping at that time period. You also have a 12-hour delay in Earth's rotation. You have 12 extra hours of night on the Jerusalem side and 12 extra hours of daylight on North and South America side. Remember where it says in the Bible, it says, I shall turn the day into darkness and night into day.
It says that.
It tells you, it tells, and remember where he says he comes mid of night.
Yep.
Not midnight, but mid of night, mid of a 24-hour period. That meant Jerusalem is on the nighttime side.
Wow.
And the scientists are going to get this wrong because they don't have a model that shows Earth slowing down by 12 hours. We only have a biblical model, and they're not going to advertise that in public.
No, and they're not going to believe the biblical model. They're not going to believe the biblical model, but scientifically, the biblical model can happen. There is a scientific way for it to happen. The greatest scientist, folks, of all time is the Creator himself. He is the master mathematician. He is the greatest physicist. He is the greatest, scientist there is. He created everything from nothing. You have to understand. Gil, I got to let you go. Again, your YouTube channel is Planet 7X. And again, where's your website at again?
Planet7x.net.
Planet7x.net. That is real easy. Planet7x.net. Gil, going to have you back on here again as we continue to watch this here in the next few months here as we're closing in on that March 26th date. We should know more about it. You're saying maybe mid-January, mid-February, we may know a lot more about whether or not this is the year that, in your theory, the Planet 7X theory, that we may be seeing this planet with the naked eye.
We need to be attentive and look. We know what to look for now. This is a sign of Jonah.
Yep.
And his people who are attentive will see it before the government announces it.
All right, brother.
Yep.
Appreciate you coming on, Gil. I really do. It's fascinating stuff. Great stuff. Great work you do. Tremendous work you do. I respect it greatly.
Thank you, Paul. And it's been a pleasure on your show.
Amen. Praise God. Thank you, Gil. And so again, folks, you have to, Gil's not saying this is the year. He believes strongly that this has a high probability of being the year. And that's why he looks at the economic collapse. He looks at the Middle East chaos. Look at really, we're on the brink of World War III with Turkey and Russia and Ukraine and the United States backing out and the inconsistencies of the Obama administration, the Arab Spring 4 years ago. Look at the economy. Look at the volatility of the currencies of the world. And you hear world leaders talking about a new world order, a one world government, a one world currency. I mean, literally, folks, and look at the cultural breakdown of the world. Our cultures are collapsing. And look at ISIS, how they're not just running around in the land of the Babylon, in the Babylon prophecy, but this is like a mold. It's like an infection. It's spreading the world. It's destroying. It's putting fear in America, in the Western nations, in Europe, France, Germany, England, Australia, everywhere, Canada, people are afraid of this growing thing called ISIS, this radical Islamic jihadists. Yet we have world leaders that won't even mention it, won't even say the word. I mean, it's insane what we're witnessing. And we got Israel being completely surrounded by armies, which Jesus said would happen in the Bible in Luke 21 when he says, when you see Jerusalem compassed about with armies, know that the desolation thereof is nigh. For these are the days of vengeance. I mean, I don't know what else to say. But is this the year Planet 7X? This is Gill's term, Planet 7X. Is this the year that swings by? Is it about ready to happen, or is it another year away? Is it another 7 years away? Is it another 17 years away? I don't know. I can say this, the things that this Bible says is going to happen is going to happen. I can't myself scientifically figure out what makes it happen. I'm getting a better feel of it. I mean, I'm very interested in this stuff, but at the same time, I don't know if that's what makes it happen, but I know it's going to happen, and I can see the signs leading up to it happening. And so I'm not a skeptic on whether the Bible will come to pass. I'm a total believer in the Word of God coming to pass. I absolutely know it's coming to pass, and it may happen, and guys like Gill Broussard may have figured out what helps make it happen, but at the same time, nobody can stop it from happening. Nothing can change the infallible Word of God. Not even Lucifer himself, who would love to cause God to lie. For if he could get God to tell one lie, it would stop the prophetic track that we're on. It would prevent him from spending eternity in a lake of fire. If he could stop one prophecy, he can stop all prophecy, and he knows it, and that's why he fights tooth and nail to the bitter end. As well. And we've got Gill Broussard with us. So glad to have you on the show today. Gill, I was down in not far from you, I guess. I was in West Monroe, Louisiana a couple weeks ago.
Oh, but that's great, Paul. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I was holding a conference there. It rained 20 inches of rain, but we still had a great crowd anyway, and we had a wonderful time. The people are wonderful down in Louisiana. Really, really. All of you folks.
You should have called me. I would have drove up there to see you.
I should have done that. I was buried with putting it all together, but I should have done that. Gill, let me ask you a question. Okay, yesterday was the day that, your best calculations. Let's ask this question. You've been sent a lot of pictures. I'm sure a lot of people took pictures and video, and you've probably seen a lot of stuff on YouTube. Is any of these pictures have a possibility of actually been a glimpse of Planet X or Planet 7X?
Not any of the ones that I've received, and I received probably thousands of them.
Wow.
Most of them are lens flare or reflections off of glass or sundogs mostly. Keep in mind, we have 2 to 3 million amateur astronomers. When it does show up, we'll have close-up pictures of it. We'll better see the terrain of it. Just like we look at the moon or Mars or Jupiter, we're going to have fairly detailed pictures of it. But we cannot focus the telescope on any type of mirage. See?
Okay, so you're saying the telescope, whenever it comes into view, like a comet or an asteroid, a telescope will be able to pick this thing up, and it won't be a mirage. It will be an identifiable object.
Right. We will recognize it as a brand new planet, and that it will be recognizable, as such. But you cannot zoom in to outside the atmosphere, let's say, on something which is a mirage, like a sundial or anything else. You see. So,
Yes.
And plus, we will see it every day. Once it appears, you will see it every day, and it'll be seen around the world, not just occasional, just in someone else's yard on that day or anything. No, it's gonna, whenever it does show up, it'll be a mirage. But we will have martial law by then. When you start to see martial law happening, bail-ins, rationing of money, the bail-in, rationing of food and fuel, then they got control over the people. You can start looking up then.
So
the internet will probably be down.
So you're saying that the
Everybody
government,
on their
so
own.
what I'm hearing you say, when you start seeing martial law, is you're saying that because you believe that the government has their eyes on this thing, or they have been studying this for a long time, and they're aware of it, that it's coming, and that we will start to see more of a cultural breakdown as the reality of Planet 7X becomes well known among the public.
Well, that's the only common denominator for all of the data as well as the actions of our government globally. They're building underground facilities. They're moving their alphabet agencies to higher ground. They're spending money like they have no intention on paying it back. And then have trillions of dollars that are missing. They just vanish. So there's multiple indicators that show something's up that's serious. And
There's no denying.
that. We have a
Gil,
What is that?
there's no denying, you're right, of the fact that there's underground cities that are built. And I mean, I've talked to now 3 different people who've worked for the government, 2 of them that still do, who have actually been inside these underground cities, told me the things that are actually being stored there, that the facilities are incredible. There's 6.5, one man told me it's 6.5 miles deep under in Denver, that the city itself goes 6.5 miles deep. There's hospital facilities. There is an incredible amount of things that are stored there, not just storage, the ability to grow food. I mean, the whole thing, it's an unbelievable thing. And that's just one, okay? You've got these underground cities are in places like in Russia and in China and in many, many nations of the world that are preparing. So they're preparing for something. There's no question they're preparing for something.
Right. I've been in some of the underground facilities in China.
Okay.
You can actually you can dine. I think they have 7 restaurants that are advertised that are in their underground facilities, and you can dine there. And
Now,
they're able to put I think 80% of their population underground within just a few minutes.
80% of the entire population of China?
No, on the 5 major cities.
Okay.
Beijing was one of them.
Okay.
Beijing was one of the major cities that within just a few minutes, because they have all of the access points, elevators, you name everything is there.
So we got to get the general public in alternative media like we do here. We have to get past the fact that it's not a theory that there's underground cities that are being built and preparing for something catastrophic that's coming. We have to come to the realization that it is true. Okay, it's a fact. Now the question is, what's coming and when? Well, according, of course, to Gill Broussard and others, there is a massive or a very large planet. You can call it Nibiru, you can call it Planet 7X, like Gill does, or Planet X, and it's going to be on the edges of our solar system. And as Gill said, it should become visible without question and be visible for some time. Now, Gill, I spoke to a man over the weekend who worked on the Nibiru project, which is a project of the federal government. A man who's been in, Area 51, so he had a pretty high clearance. He's telling, and he's very ill. He's very ill, and he's talking to me about this stuff because he knows, look, he's got to get this off his chest. He can't. He's already retired, no longer in the government, and he's to the point now where he's got to get this off his chest because time's running out, and not only for him, but for what's coming. And he says to me, "You have to listen to me, Paul. The government has been studying this a long time, and the gravitational effect on the Earth, it's like two magnets. The Earth's a little magnet, this thing's a bigger magnet, somewhere around 4 to 4.5 times larger than the Earth. Some people might say it's 6 to 7 times larger, but we certainly know it's at least 4 to 4.5, and so it's like two magnets, and we're already beginning to feel the effects of it, and that's why you're seeing an uptick in volcanoes, uptick in earthquakes, and we're going to be seeing mega, he says to me, mega thunderbolts will be hitting the earth, and when it does, it will scorch, acres at a time. This is not something, when there's going to be a time when it's going to affect us. Brimstone, that kind of thing, you can, that's not, I'm not lying to you, so I'm telling you, we're going to feel these effects. We're going to have these effects from this thing. It's not going to hit us, but we're going to see it and we're going to feel it. So, is that, Gill, is there a magnetic pull already beginning with this thing?
Yes, but what it's causing is just like the electric motor. When you have if it's not in the right phase, it causes overheating. Well, that's what it's causing to all of our planets. All of our planets are heating up a little bit. So if you have even 1 degree rise, that magma in the center of the Earth has to expand. And if it expands, the crust has to move. So that causes the release of methane. That's why we see bird and fish kills happening.
Okay.
We also see the earthquakes and the volcanic activity spiking at tremendous levels. And this is also one of the reasons why we're seeing so many meteors hitting the Earth. The magnetic field is warping the orbit of asteroids that would normally miss us, that have a set orbit. And their orbits are being causing more meteors to enter our atmosphere.
Gill, the Bible says, we start talking about the effects of this. Oh, by the way, the gentleman I was speaking to said to me, he said, I want to say that Gill Broussard has been pretty fascinating. He has done a tremendous job in the research he's done, and he's also brought things out that unless he's got an inside person who's also sharing information with him, he's done a tremendous job in some of the information of the effects of Planet 7X. If he figured that out on his own, that's pretty remarkable. Either that, or he said, or he has an inside guy who's giving him some information. So I want you to know that. By the way, the government knows, and the government knows what you're doing. They know that not only you, but other astronomers and others that work on this. Matter of fact, there's teams of people in the United States government that studies Bible prophecy. But as it relates to Planet 7X, they are aware of your work and are impressed with it. So I wanted to share that with you. The Bible.
I've had people who work for NASA had contacted me before and told me that I connected the dots for them.
Good.
And I've also had professional astronomers that reached out to me to get my white paper reports on this. And but this is my own research. I don't have
Don't have an inside guy.
of the government or anything like that. No.
Okay, that's good, and that's good information. No, and I think you should be commended for the hard work you've done. Now, Gil, we have to ask this question because it was your best calculation you could do, and you said you didn't have a crystal ball. You told me that 3 or 4 times on the air here, and you did have an 8-year window. Yesterday has come and gone. We had a blood moon though, Gil. We had a blood moon in Indiana. I just don't know what the deal is. Unscheduled. That's another question. But I want to ask you a question. Yeah. The people want to know now. March 26th has come and gone. Where do we go from here, Gil? Are you in the process of recalculating now that you know this date's gone? Where are you at, and what should we know? What do we need to know now?
Well, the data from the Chinese, Korean, and the Japanese astronomers. That data is what I call hard evidence. It shows a segment of its orbit that we can calculate and get proves to us there is an object that exists that crosses Earth's path twice. And that in itself is troubling. So with that same overlay, when we bring it to the biblical model, it proves out consecutively that these Hebrews saw something that mirrors the exact model of what the Chinese saw.
Okay.
And the Asian astronomers. You cannot be that consistent in the data without knowing the science and have it correct.
So you're saying the data of the Asians, what they saw and wrote down, and the date they saw it, and what the Hebrews wrote down and saw and documented in the Bible, that those 2 dates and events match, and they're 2 different cultures, and they match.
Not the dates, I'm saying the orbital path of this object, because without the Asian astronomers, we could not have gotten the path of this, where it comes in and leaves our inner solar system, and proving that it crosses Earth's orbital path twice. One, it exits in the month of March or April, and this was quite frightening whenever we found this.
All right, now Gil, we're back
and
to
this is consistent.
Okay, now back to the date again. Now that the date has come and gone, we haven't seen. Now you do know though, you are being challenged by several on YouTube and of people who have gotten all kinds of pictures. Like you said, you've seen thousands. I've seen probably hundreds of people have sent me stuff saying, "Is this it? Is this it?" I don't know, but so you are being challenged by some folks who believe they have got a glimpse of it or got a picture of it. Let's forget that for a minute, and let's just say this. Now that the date's come and gone, what is the next thing you do? I mean, what do you go back and recalculate based on the baseline of the Chinese or the Asians, or what do you do where do we go from here?
Well, the Asian data does not tell us when it's going to arrive. It only gives us the path they take.
Okay.
And the biblical records don't tell us a date neither, except I thought maybe Revelation 12:1 was a date.
Okay.
And that's why I said I'm greatly concerning, because it does match the pattern.
Okay.
It ended up not being that. And so looking at astronomy, the software, I see nothing in the foreseeable future that would match Revelation 12:1, because Jupiter has moved out of the way, and it's not going to be September, because September does not match what the Asian astronomers have given us in a orbital path, and neither does it match Yeshua's sacrifice, so which is in Passover. So we'll have to rely on seal 3, 4, and 5 CO3 is economic collapse, which is basically a bail-in.
Yeah.
CO4 is war and famine,
Right.
which is rationing of food. When we see those things, the internet is going to be down because of the war. They're going to do a cyber attack. That's when people should be looking up and they'll see an object, just like you look at the nighttime sky, just like you look at Jupiter, it'd be equal to that size in the nighttime sky, but as bright as Venus.
Right.
And it'll slowly get closer and closer.
Okay.
It's not until the last couple of weeks will it really get very, very large.
Now let's talk about this before we fall back into seal 3 and 4 and take it and go back to there, and then that's based on prophetically beginning to realize what you see prophetically written and saying, hey, I think what I'm seeing now is what it said it would happen. Before we go back there, is there? It's still not Passover yet. Is there still a month yet that we still should give this a little more time, Gil? I mean, just is there still a little more time?
Yes. Yes, because the barley was not right, and the first Libra moon. I mean, the barley appeared to be right visually, but the core of the kernel, if you parched it over fire, it would not hold a grain. There was too much moisture in it, and you have to have a certain percentage of it right. They only had maybe 2 grains out of 20 that was actually the consistency needed to better make a grain. So it has to be in April, the Passover year.
Okay, so with the Passover being moved into April, as we know, I think it's April 23rd, or maybe the Friday evening of the 22nd, coming into the 23rd, okay, of April. Is it so between now and then? Is there? Would you still say there's a window that there still might be this one more month window of potentially seeing planet 7X, and that if we don't see it in this next month, we have to step back and recalculate?
No, just like I put out a video stating that I was going to put out a video around February stating that this year would not be the year of the return of Planet 7X. But when I was about ready to put the video on, then we saw the thought. We had saw that the
Stock
stock
market,
market was sliding down,
right?
falling,
All the world markets.
and then there was a threat of tactical nuke being used by Russia and Saudi Arabia and such.
Right.
So I held back in case that was going to go through, because that would be the description of CO3 and 4.
Right.
Economic collapse and war. But it didn't occur. So we don't have enough time for CO3, 4, and 5 to happen before 6, because the meteor shower pertaining to this planet is CO6 and 7. CO6 and 7 is 150 to 152 days apart. So we have to see 3, 4, and 5 occur.
So, having said that, if in the next month, looking at it without looking at the apocalyptic events on the Earth, if we just don't look at those for a minute and just simply go by the stars in the skies and what you're expecting to see and when, if we don't see Planet X, if we don't get a telescopic, somebody don't get a telescope, I mean, what about these guys in Chile? We got these guys out here in Chile up on the mountain who say they saw 2 different planets over in the constellation of Orion, okay? And then we also have a report, the government admitted that yes, they did see Planet X back in 1984. The Washington Post posted the article that they had seen it. Then they have a team of researchers working on it, and I believe I've talked to one of them just the other day. So we know that the government's been involved in studying this. So Gil, if we don't see it in the next month, you're still in your 8-year window.
Let me help you, Paul.
Okay.
Let me help you a little bit. Anything starting if Orion is in the wrong direction.
Okay.
It will not cross Orion until it comes inside our inner solar system as it's rounding the sun.
All right.
Where it's at is it's only in Sagittarius. Okay, it has to leave Sagittarius to come into our But Orion is, if you want to call it propaganda, if you want to call it, unless they're seeing something else.
Well, could they have?
Are seeing something, it's too far away.
It's possible they've seen something else because the Bible does speak about the Lord loosening the bands of Orion, and you can find that in the book of Job. So it could be that there's something else there, but that doesn't have anything to do with planet 7X. So to your point, that's not 7X. That might be something else, but we're talking about planet 7X. Gil, what about next year? I mean, look, let me just ask you this question. Could the asteroid TX68, which just went by, it had a cluster of meteorites ahead of it and a cluster of asteroids that come behind it, and we've had 2 comets go by last week, one day after the other. Could any of that be being affected by planet 7X?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
They are being affected.
They are. So, okay, that's time out, Gil. What? Are you serious? Because the reason I'm saying that is that's what I've been feeling is the reason we're getting these asteroids and clusters and these comets and these recent discoveries of things flying by us so close that there must be something majorly affecting the overall galactical plane. So you're saying without a doubt that's planet 7X causing that.
Yeah. Paul, if our object was at the orbit of Neptune, it would take 16 years to reach the sun.
Okay.
This object, because of all of the signs that we're seeing, it's a lot closer than 16 years. Okay? For this to arrive, for it to match, remember, the Bible says economic collapse, seal 3, and famine in seal 4.
Right.
The only way his people are prepared for that is if they follow his instructions for a Sabbath or a Jubilee year. So his people are protected because on a Sabbath and Jubilee, they are to stock up food. That's when seal 3 and 4 will happen. Now, if we have the Sabbath year and the Jubilee correct, then they should match. But this object is not 16 years away.
So you're saying
either 1 or 2 years away.
Well, guess what? You have just confirmed what the man that I was talking to that's very ill, who worked for 32 years, Intel, with the federal government. I believe the man. So he told me his name, told me where he lives. I believe the man. I'm going to actually go visit this man. He says to me, Paul, you have to hear me. We're going to, by December of this year, the Earth is going to have definite effects from planet X, whether we've seen it yet or not, that we're feeling it already, and we will feel it in December because, and I said, well, what do you mean by feel it? He goes, I mean when there is lightning bolts that hit the earth like you haven't seen in your lifetime, and these lightning bolts will actually almost come up from the earth up instead of coming down. It's because it's a magnetic pull. There will be, without question, it's not going to be the end of the world in December. It's not going to be a cataclysmic, but I'm telling you, there is going to be definite effects of it by December of this year. And then when we flow into 2017, things are going to start to pick up. So he is saying the same thing you're saying, that within a 2-year window here, it's going to get a little bit intense.
Remember, the Bible gives us clear indication that Earth is tilted 3 to 4 times. It's tilted 26 to 28 degrees.
Yeah.
Just like 2 magnets being attracted.
Right.
For it to come that close, it has to throw lightning bolts or plasma discharges between the 2 planets. Well, so I started looking for evidence of this. If you look in Africa, it's called the Eye of the Sahara. That is a circular crater, they call it.
Okay.
But it's not a meteor crater because it doesn't have any of the signals for it. It's flat. It has multiple rings, concentric rings to the center. It dissolved 300 foot of a neighboring mountain there and caused part of the mountain range.
All right.
And this is 30 miles across. This lightning bolt was 30 miles across.
Yep.
Well, a 30-mile lightning bolt does not happen from a normal comet. That has to be a very large
object pulling. Yeah.
to better have a 30-mile lightning strike, if you want to call it that, but it's a plasma discharge, and that is evidence right there. I believe that one was caused during the time of Hezekiah.
Okay.
I'm lacking a little bit of evidence to say that for sure, but I believe it's the same time.
Well,
Period.
we know that Mars. We
have definite evidence.
But we know that Mars has been affected by something. I mean, some of these craters and some of these things that we can see from the face of Mars. Mars has been affected, and it may have already been affected significantly here lately from Planet 7X. I mean, it may already be feeling the effects of it. If not now, it will or has in the past. Let me read a scripture here. We got folks. We have Gill Broussard with us. Gil out of Louisiana. He is a leading astronomer as it relates to Planet X or Planet 7X or Nibiru, and has done some remarkable work and fascinating work. He has a great DVD out as well. Gil, do you have a website where people can find your website, see your DVD?
Yeah. Planet7x.net.
Planet7x.net, folks. Planet7x.net. Let me read a couple scriptures, Gil. You know, the Bible says in Revelation 8:8, it starts talking about the opening of the six and seven seals, and a couple things are going to happen to the earth. It says that in verse 8, it says, a second angel sounded as it were a great mountain, burning with fire, was cast into the sea. The third part of the sea became blood. The third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter, or radiation, probably radiation poisoning. That sounds like two deep impacts. One maybe hitting the ocean, one maybe even hitting land. But that's definitely two impacts, whether those are asteroids or fragments from off of, comets. I don't know. But certainly those are two definite events prophesied by John in the Bible.
Yeah, this is from the debris field. Wormwood is an asteroid from the debris field, the size of a mountain. Remember how it mimics Noah's time, he said, remember?
Yes.
Well, there was a large mountain-sized meteor that hit the Earth on the second event that actually caused the moon to be formed, and that also formed the Gulf of Mexico, but that one was 110 miles across. This next one can't not be 110 miles across, because no life would
survive. Right.
We'll have a flooded Earth.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have a flooded Earth condition for such a large impact to better absorb the heat. So we're looking at something closer probably to maybe 20 miles across or something like that. And it's going to hit one of our oceans, which is the Pacific Ocean. And Earth will wobble like a drummer. It's hit so hard. And every island and mountain will
be moved out of their place. Yeah. Well, that's a significant event. And of course, we can read in the Bible this prophecy here that John is telling us about. It's telling us definitely about an event that's going to wipe out a lot of people. A lot of people will die during this process. And so something has to cause that. My point is this. Jesus said this, and Yeshua said in the book of St. Luke's Gospel, the 21st chapter, when he talks about great signs and fearful sights in the heavens. But then he says there shall be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, and men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things that are coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. All right? Then shall they see the Son of Man come in clouds with power and great glory. And when you begin to see these things come to pass, he said, look up, lift up your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. But for Jesus to say that the powers of heaven will be shaken and men will die of heart failure for what they know is coming, Something's got to cause that, Gil. Something's got to cause it. And do you believe it is Planet 7X that God will use, just like he used a strong east wind to part the Red Sea? I mean, God uses the nature things that he's created. Do you believe it is Planet 7X that's going to bring upon the earth such fear, I guess? I mean, if you will. I mean, people dying because they're not ready. I mean, if you're ready, you're not afraid. He told us to look up, our redemption draws nigh. But do you think it is Planet 7X that will bring about this event, the shaking of the heavens?
Definitely, because there's no way that ancient man could have gotten the order of events correct. Nothing stated in Revelation violates the present model. And they didn't have no prior knowledge of a plasma or magnetically ruled universe. Remember where it says the four angels go out and they hold back the winds?
Yes.
The winds are not blowing on Earth?
Yes.
That only can happen if Earth's rotation stops. Remember Joshua's long day?
Yes.
The Earth stopped for 12 hours. It's going to happen again.
Yes. And you know,
the lightning bolts, when this thing comes closer, you're going to see the lightning bolts as well.
Okay, I want to share with you that, again, the gentleman who worked for the federal government, worked on what he called Project Nibiru, said that without question, the Earth will have to stop spinning temporarily, and he said it will happen because of the magnetic pull. If you study the calculations of which we use, he said you have to understand, we have people working on this, the most brilliant minds that the government could find. I mean, people with IQs so high that scare you. These people calculate everything there is to it. The Earth will have to have a momentary stop in spinning. I said to him, does that mean the core of the Earth will stop also? He said, no. That's what's really wild. The core of the Earth, the core in the Earth will continue to flow even though the surface of the Earth stops temporarily. And so, Gil, what you're saying is that it mathematically, and the effects of two huge magnets passing in the night, which is basically what this is. You got the Earth and you got this huge entity, this huge thing going by. As it goes by, it doesn't come toward us, but as it goes by, it's shaking everything up magnetically. It's pulling on everything. The moon, the Mars, the planets, the sun. Sun starts breaking apart with more and more releasing of CMEs and a lot more, which is one reason I think the Bible says the sun will scorch men 5 months. Okay, it says it right in this book. Something has to cause that. And God doesn't just do anything without using the scientific nature of his planet and his universe. Everything God does has a scientific answer to it, because the master scientist of all, the creator of all, knows exactly how to make these things work. And what blows my mind, my little mind, what blows it is that he also tells us the spiritual condition of people when these physical manifestations are taking place. So, Gil, the Earth, he said, he's confirming what you said, and that the Earth has to momentarily stop spinning. I don't know for how long, but he used the word momentarily.
Yes, it's the last 24 to 28 hours, all generators, electrical generators, or any electrical device globally has to be shut down, because once Earth enters into plasma tail, that's the same thing similar to like a EMP, a wave hitting Earth is going to overload the electrical system. So the world has to go dark for almost, the last 3 days or so.
So you talk about 3 days of darkness here. Let me just say quickly, that was one of the plagues of Egypt, and we could go on forever. Folks, we got Gill Broussard with us. His website is www.planet7x.net. That's www.planet7x.net. He has a DVD on all of this. He does a great job putting that together. I mean, it's a documentary is what it is, and you can get a copy of that, and I think you'd really enjoy it. It's fascinating. let me say quickly to those of you that are watching or listening right now, if you're saved, you have nothing to be afraid of. I want to be sure you understand that. Christ has risen from the dead, all right? He is the Messiah. He is returning for the bride of Christ, for those of us that are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, whether you're Jew or Gentile, whether you bond or free, no matter who you are, if you've accepted Christ as your Savior, you have the victory. I'm here to tell you. But it doesn't change the fact that the book of Revelation and the prophecies of the Bible are going to come to pass. And if I'm saved, hey, if somebody tells me, if Gil goes live tomorrow and does a YouTube video and says, I see it, it's coming, I'm not going to freak out and have a heart attack. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to say, really? Wow. Hey, here we go again. Another sign of his coming. I'm ready. I'm looking up. I'm lifting up my head and I'm saying my redemption is definitely drawing nigh. I still don't know exact day or hour, but wow, I can see the day approaching. Somebody help me preach. But if you're not saved, I can understand why you'd be a little bit stressful right now. But you've come to the right place because we've come to the place where you can get the answers. All right? The answer is in Christ Jesus. It's not in anything. My dad preaches this, Gil. He says, I'm not looking for a hole in the ground. I'm looking for a home in the sky. And that's the way people have to feel, isn't it, Gil?
Yeah, in a way, I have a little bit different take on it.
Well, that's fine.
I believe we have to in the scriptures, he talks about a Mekrah, which has been poorly translated as feast. What it is a dry rehearsal.
Okay.
He gave us these dry rehearsal to practice, he says, forever. They're Yahweh God's its instructions. And he requires us to be in Jerusalem for Passover. This is going to happen near the Passover feast. That's why you're so focused.
I'm sorry.
Right, because he's pointing out that that's the pivot point for the tilt. Earth is going to tilt 26 to 28 degrees, and into Jerusalem or the Middle East region is going to have the least effect. And he says, go there to meet me. He says, be there for the pickup. You can call it like an LOZ if you want it, or whatever, but you need to meet him there. And he says he brings you to the wilderness, where the place of safety is. And
well, that's why
two taking away, they are defined completely different. They have different qualifiers.
Well, one thing's for sure, as you said, Jesus said, pray that your flight be not winter nor on the Sabbath day, and of course, we know that there's going to be events taking place, Jerusalem. Even Zechariah, the prophet, said that, that he's seen the Lord there in Zechariah 14. He's seen the Mount of Olives split in half, and the water would flow from the hinder sea to the former sea, and certainly there's going to be events take place, great earthquake that's going to hit there in Jerusalem. There's going to be a lot that takes place right there in the Holy Land without question. And we even know that the Scripture refers to Christ as the Jerusalem is the city of the King. Even we know that this same Jesus that you see going away shall come again in like manner. Okay, he's coming back. Okay, and he even tells you where he's coming. I mean, really, you got Old Testament prophets telling you that, and you know that Christ himself referred to that. So you're right on that. I mean, there's no question. There's some events that's going to happen.
Yeah.
This is why Israel had to be established as a nation, folks. Had to be reestablished because it had to be ready for the coming of the King. Okay, there's just no doubt about it. Gil, let's go back to the Planet 7X for a minute. Let's talk just for a moment here. All right, where do we go from here, Gil? What is? Are you going back to the drawing board as far as mathematical calculations by picking a different point, maybe in the Bible, and going forward, or are you listening to? What is NASA saying? I mean, obviously they give us just what they want. I mean, we're going to be bringing Mike from around the world in here in just a few minutes, and we're going to ask him some of those questions. But what will you do, Gil? Where do you go from here?
There's nothing in the Scripture that stands out as a date. That was the only one that kind of caught my eye.
Okay.
After this, we have to be attentive. He said he'll show us a sign in the sky.
Okay.
And it has to happen either on the Sabbath or Jubilee. unless we got the Sabbath and Jubilee wrong, that'd be the only other avenue that would be some other year. But we would start to see it sometime during this Jubilee coming, and then the following March or April would be the return of the Messiah and Jerusalem. Because we don't have any other feast that requires us to stock up food for us to be prepared for the famine in Seal 4. And, so
Okay,
the
well,
Almighty gave us these instructions.
all right. So, again, like what you're saying is, unless we don't have the right year or the right Jubilee year correct, which is very possible, as you know. I mean, the calendars have changed. I'm not talking about the Hebraic calendar. We know God's calendar never changed, but men we've lost out on a little bit of where we're at on this thing. I mean, it's very possible we could be off a year or two or 5. I mean, you give yourself this 8-year window for a reason. I think it was more than just the mathematical equations. I think you were also looking at this prophetically of events that would happen. So when you am I right?
Scientifically, there is no data scientifically that picks us a date. It just gives us the path that it takes, and we can qualify the debris that Earth is going through, certain sizes and certain references that the Chinese gave. We can roughly estimate the size of this object. But we have to, not until we visually see it can we qualify the actual size and what the actual date or the week of its arrival. Now, the Bible goes in deeper in qualifying the date. So if we join the two together, to me, it's pointing out that this event will happen either during a Sabbath or a Jubilee year. Citing it.
Right.
Right after this Jubilee finished, be the beginning of the next year, which would be the March or April. This event will happen in a March or April scenario. That's a fact. The data points to that. But
the point
there is a small percentage of we may have the Jubilee and the Sabbath year wrong, but I don't think we do. There's certain other qualifiers that I won't go into through history that seem to add up to this being that.
And I got to give you a lot of credit, because NASA is not they're not really reading the Bible to find out what all of the prophetic things are saying leading up to it. Although the government, the United States government, and they're not the only government that does this, is studying the Bible. They have prophecy teams that are watching everything going on in the events and how the Bible says it, and also keeping their eye on this Planet X, Nibiru, whatever you want to call this thing, and Planet 7X. So having said that, I give you a lot of credit, because you're the first guy really who come out and says, look, it's getting close, guys, and it's not only because of the scientific data and the historical accounts, but it's because of the prophetic word. It's all lining up. It's all coming together. This thing is, and so you go out there on a limb further than anybody and say, we're in the ballpark. Now we're hearing the echoes coming out of the scientific society, field of this thing, saying there's definitely something going on up here. And there's definitely more galactical, there's more garbage floating around up here. The Earth is dodging it right now as things are whizzing by, and it's going to only get more and more intense. And so I give you a lot of credit for doing that, and the fact that you're going to continue to stay on it. And what I'm hearing you say, in this next year, we better keep looking. But until we see it, we can't figure out its size or speed until we get our eyes on it. And you're the first guy saying, I'm telling you when I think we're going to get our eyes on it, and that we're close to getting our eyes on it. And I think for that you should be commended. And I know you've worked hard, and I know there's others that are confirming what you're saying. I'm talking about people in the intel community who are not allowed to come out and tell us who they are, but are letting us know. And I'm telling you, Gil, they come to my conferences, and people walk up to me and say, I am working for the federal government. I can't tell you even my real name. I go by a fake name, but I can tell you, keep doing what you're doing. We know that it's coming. We know the prophecies are true in the Bible. I'm a born again Christian. Just keep doing what you're doing. So Gil, I appreciate what you do on this. I really do. Again, folks, Gill Broussard's website is www.planet7x.net. That's www.planet7x.net. Gil, what would you suggest? I mean, give us your final words on this. You can't. We're not asking you for another date, but just give us your final words on this.
You were mentioning NASA. Well, let's point out that NASA couldn't predict that Damascus would be a ruinous heap.
That's true.
We're seeing that.
That's true.
And NASA couldn't predict that Libya, Egypt, and Syria and Iraq were going to fall, just like the Bible was predicting.
That's right.
Exactly at the end time. So there is data there. It depends on whether or not you're mining it correctly to put it in reference.
Wow.
We have to be attentive. We need to follow his instructions. He says on the Sabbath and Jubilee, prepare 1 year of food for each of those years and buy supplies because there's going to be a shortage coming up. And whenever you see the peace agreement being signed, the internet's going to go down. When you see the peace agreement being signed, take it to Jerusalem to see the two prophets as well as the Messiah is returning.
Yep.
For a that he said it's only for a small group. And
Gil, that's a great point. I mean, I've been talking to Rabbi Yehuda Glick and these guys that that are actually, they're actually pushing to get the thing built, and it's kind of amazing that that's happening the same time that Damascus is becoming a ruinous heap, that the Arab Spring has happened, that the madness of ISIS is running wild, that the planets are shaking in the heavens. I mean, all of it's coming together. All the pieces are on the table, Gil, I think. And your point is this: NASA will never bring out the biblical ramifications of what we see as you're doing. So you're the guy that we got that's looking up in there and checking out the heavens for us, watching the stars. And you got your eye on the Bible, too. And I think that's really cool. I think I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you.
We'll have you back again, Gil. Don't worry. You'll keep an eye on things for us. And if you get breaking news, you let me know. I'll bring you back on here immediately, all right? Definitely.
We sure will.
Sure will. All right. God bless you. And thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye. Amen. Gill Broussard, folks. I mean, he's a classy guy. He's a class act. I mean, there's no question. I mean, who do you know that's willing to step up to the microphone and say, look, I think this might be potentially the day that we could see the Planet X. He's not saying it's the day that, the world's coming to an end, but he was saying this could be the day that we could see this planet that could be shaking the heavens and affecting us just like the Bible said something's going to do. I give him credit. And then the day after, show up on this show live and say, okay, I thought this was the day that we would see it. We haven't yet, but I'm telling you, we're feeling the effects of it, and we're going to keep looking at it, and we're going to stay on top of it. And he isn't going to go hide somewhere and run away. He wasn't predicting the end of the world. I mean, I get email from people, Begley, why are you got this guy setting dates? He wasn't setting a date of the end of the world. He was setting a date, best calculation that he thought we would see that planet. And there might be some who think we have. I got to go on record. There are some people who believe we have. So with that, we're going to take a 2-minute break. We're going to be bringing Mike from around the world on here next. Don't you dare go anywhere, folks. We'll be praying today. Listen, this is Easter Sunday or Resurrection Sunday. I want to share this with you before we bring Mike on. Today, we're going to be praying for the sick. Heidi, if you're sending in your Sunday night offering, your tithe and offering, as I know you folks are, you're so faithful to this online church and to the move of God here. You guys know that we bring on different guests like this for several reasons, to inform people of what's going on, and also to look at the current events as it relates to biblical prophecy. It helps us sometimes to understand what some of the experts are seeing so that we can match that with what the Bible says is coming. We can't do this except for your help. And so as you're sending in your tithe and your offerings, or you're planting a seed tonight, and this being Resurrection Sunday, to be quite honest with you, if you want to give a resurrection offering, a resurrection offering to Christ as a special offering to Christ, do that. And you can say it right there in the as you're sending it on PayPal there in that little note. Put in the praise report if there's a praise report you want to give. If there's a prayer request of something, because we're going to pray diligently for all of these requests in about the last half hour or so of this broadcast. And Heidi will come in. So send those now. She's typing those now. She's pulling that together now. And we'll be ready for that. God bless all of you. We love you. It's great to see you, folks. Amen. Praise the Lord. Amen. Amen. I really enjoyed it, Gill Broussard. I really do. I really do. We asked him some questions, and he was not afraid to answer. I appreciate it very much. Gill Broussard is going to join us very soon. An extremely talented man who has a fresh new revelation for us, some new information, I should say, that he is going to share with us today. We're going to ask him about that missing asteroid. Where did it go, Gil? Where did it go? Did it even ever exist? And if it didn't, why? I mean, all NASA has to do is tell us, oops, we thought we saw something, but we didn't. But don't tell us you see an asteroid that's a half a mile wide, you give it a name, 2016 WF9, and then you pull it from the charts and never speak of it again, just like Planet X. So we're going to ask Gill Broussard, what is the deal with asteroid 2016 WF9, due to go by the Earth February 25th, maybe, I guess. And then what about Planet 7X? Give us an update on it. Any new information? What's the story? And also, what about Revelation chapter 12, the wonder seen in heaven by John the Revelator? Can Gil give us some insight to this extraordinary constellation event that is supposed to take place, I understand, in September of 2017? And what about Comet 45P Honda? Has he got any information about that while we got him there? And oh, by the way, he wants to say, he said this to me on the phone, he said, I want to give you my take on the 5 waves of energy. So we're going to be asking Gill Broussard about that. And Gil, tell us, what is this new info you want to tell us that's supposed to take place in March? Okay, so we're going to get all of that from Gill Broussard, Lord willing, in just a few minutes. Now, and when you go to Jerusalem, it is now on the lips of everyone. And it used to be when this Third Temple discussion was going on about 30 or 40 years ago, there were a lot of Jews saying, whoa, don't go there because, man, if we start talking Third Temple, you know, the Muslims and the surrounding nations are just going to come against us heavily. So let's not talk about it. Matter of fact, the lawmakers in the Knesset said, shh, let's not talk about this. We'll upset the world. Well, here we are now in the 50th year of the liberation of Jerusalem and the 69th year of the establishment of Israel as a nation, that there is not only a talk of a third temple, but there's a temple institute in Jerusalem with the golden shewbread table, the golden altar, the 7 silver trumpets, the high priest, the breastplate, everything according to Scripture, including the golden menorah that's sitting on Mount Zion, staring at the Temple Mount. There are rabbis everywhere pushing for it, including Rabbi Yehuda Glick, who was almost murdered, shot 4 times by a Palestinian terrorist, only to survive miraculously. Now sits in the Knesset and just came to the inauguration of President Donald Trump, representing the nation of Israel and the name of Jerusalem, by the way. So I don't think you can make this stuff up. I mean, we are living in the last days. And oh, by the way, while all these things are taking place, all these pieces are on the table of the coming of the Lord, the prophecies of the coming of the Lord, earthquakes, volcanoes, sinkholes, meteors, asteroids, extreme weather conditions, apocalyptic, sometimes cataclysmic events taking place on the earth at an extraordinary rate as the birthing pains of the coming of Jesus Christ are magnificently being played out before our very eyes. And then throw in a few archaeological finds, like maybe they found the Urim and the Thummim, Urim and Thummim, or maybe, and they found a high priest button, and they have found the tablets with 7 seals. They have found archaeological finds of the city of David, and even the seed, olive seeds, inside a storage bin in the city of David, which is what Haggai asked the question, is there not seed in the barn? Haggai 2:19, which doesn't even make any sense when you read the chapter. It's like, why is that verse there? And so anyway, there's so many things. I mean, are you serious? And even now, every time I go to Jerusalem, people ask me, would you keep an eye open for one of the 2 witnesses? And there's two witnesses in the Garden of Gethsemane right now. There's two olive trees. They're the only two trees in this nation of Israel that are over 2,000 years old. So they would have been in the Garden of Gethsemane as small twigs when Christ knelt on the rock of agony and prayed until his sweat became great drops of blood. Father, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Those two olive trees are there, and they're big now, but they are two witnesses of that moment. And guess what? The Bible refers to the two witnesses that are coming in Revelation to the two olive trees. Oh, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, are you serious? There will be some physical manifestations. Here's what it says. And I also, upon the servants and handmaids in those days, will I pour out my spirit, and I will show wonders in the heaven. Is that what Gill Broussard is going to talk to us about today? And in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke, and the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, and in the remnant to whom the Lord hath called. Folks, it is this, I'm telling you, the table is being set, and you have a front row seat to end time Bible prophecy. The current world events that are happening today and how they relate to biblical prophecy, and Planet 7X and all the other things that are taking place. His take on the waves of energy, his take on the Comet 45P, his take on is there an asteroid 2016 WF9. And here he is, Gill Broussard.
Hello, Paul. How's it going?
Really good. You are live with us. Huge crowd of folks gathered. Great to have you on the show today, Gill.
Well, I'm happy to be back.
Great to have you. Wow. Everything's going on like you wouldn't believe, Gill. And, there's so much happening around the world with different events. But today we're really interested. I mean, folks are really interested, and I'm very glad that you've come on to be with us. We appreciate you returning. You are the expert, folks. Gill Broussard is the expert. I would say, as it relates to Planet 7X, as it relates to the research of biblical events and how they were tied to historical accounts. Nobody has ever researched it and tied it together better than Gill Broussard, and then verified it with I think 12 or 13 different scientists or mathematicians to verify this. So he has really done a great job. You can find his Facebook page. We're going to keep putting your website up there and your Facebook page, Gill, so people can find out more about you. But Gill, let me ask you a couple questions. We've got about 4 or 5 questions, but one of them is this, just to get this off the table. There's circulating everywhere rumors of an asteroid that's supposed to come very close to the Earth February 25th. Now, the name of the asteroid, NASA named it. In October, they said they called it asteroid 2016 WF9. That was the name NASA gave it. NASA has now removed it from its charts. They said it was a half a mile wide. It's now listed nowhere. Do you know anything about this asteroid or what's going on with it?
I'm afraid I don't. I haven't. That's the first I've heard of it, so I can't really make any comments on it because I don't have any info.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Then what about Comet 45P, Honda? Any info you can share with us on that?
Yeah, I've turned it on the software program that it's built into the astronomy software now. Whenever they place it out, and it's not it's definitely not our planet because it doesn't have the same orbit. It's not crossing Earth path twice. Remember, Revelation and other parts tells us that this object that's in the biblical records crossed our path twice, with a gap of 5 months in between the entry and the exit point.
Okay.
And because all the other items pivot from the center of the sun, so you have 3 fixed points. You have 2 where it crosses Earth's path, and 1 the center of the sun. So that gives you 3 fixed points. That places it on the ecliptic only. Okay.
Are we talking planet 7X?
Yes.
Okay.
So these other ones, these asteroids, remember their orbits are warped. That's the reason why we see so many asteroids entering our atmosphere, and also the reason why NASA is so worried, because our planet 7X is warping the orbits of comets. We have scientific studies going back almost 7 to 10 years from the UK as well as the US that it proves out that the orbits of our comets are warped by unknown gravity.
So
And
when you say warped, you're saying that the unknown gravity is knocking the asteroids off their orbit? Is that what you mean by warped?
It's kind of like you're on a 4-lane driving, and you want to pass a vehicle. You cross into the other lane to pass around, and then you come back into your normal route, your normal lane. Well, it's the same thing with these asteroids. Their gravity is warping and bending their normal path. Okay.
Wow.
And so and that can be calculated and seen through instruments we see in space. And from 2 scientific reports we have, and this is in the same area of space, Sagittarius, which is south of the universe.
Okay.
Remember, people, south of the universe is not polar south. That's called Nadar. South of the universe is where Sagittarius is.
Okay.
All of the data that we have, actually hard data, points to Sagittarius.
So is Planet X coming from the direction of Sagittarius?
That's its original course, right? Right now, if it was to reach us at, let's say, March of this coming up March, that means it's already on the inside of our solar system. It takes 76 days for it to cross to enter our inner solar system and to exit. Basically, that's on the inside of Earth's path, around the sun. No one's seen it yet. The 40-day mark, which is very interesting also. Remember Jonah, when he warned Nineveh, gave him a 40-day warning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just received some information that Trump generals are sending over 5,000 troops into Iraq, and that they should be finished with ISIS in Iraq around February 4th, where they'll be announcing that they're free of ISIS as far as Iraq.
Wow.
And that Nineveh, is free. Well,
now wait a minute.
Mosul
So you're
Nineveh.
saying we just got breaking news just now that Donald Trump is sending 5,000 U.S. troops into Iraq to eliminate ISIS and to try to have them completely wiped out of Iraq, at least out of Iraq, not Syria, but Iraq, by February 4th.
That's what I got that over a week ago, and it's in the paper that he sent 5. I've heard over that number. They're leaving Kuwait. They drove across the country and they're helping them, and they should be finished fairly quick. And then after that, then they'll probably go into Syria and finish up ISIS.
All right. So we'll just keep that information and watch that close. I do know, personally, we know from our online church, I can just say we've had a lot of mothers contact us and ladies saying, pray for my sons and pray for my husbands. They've been sent to Kuwait. And we've had some even say, pray for my son, he's been sent to Iraq. So we've been hearing that. I've never spoken a word about it publicly. But since you're bringing this up, I'll just say that is one thing I know. I don't know anything about the 5,000 that the president is sending. But I know this. The president of the United States definitely has made no bones about it, that his plan is to annihilate and eradicate ISIS from the face of the earth. He said it in the inaugural address. So, I mean, we shouldn't be shocked when we hear of a plan going into effect.
Right. What is interesting, keep in mind, Mosul is the old town of Nineveh.
Right.
I'd already made the claims that 40 days, if it is going to show up in March, which I don't have a crystal ball, I can't tell the future. I'm just saying for us to pay attention like watchmen of the wall. We have a very interesting lineup that takes place March 15th, 16th, which lines up with what the biblical is saying on Revelation 12:1. Counting backwards from that, the 40th day is February 4th.
Wow.
Okay. So maybe there's some kind of parallel with the Bible there. If it occurs that way, we have yet to find out if it happens.
So let's talk about your March. So this is the breaking news that you're sharing with us today. Is you're saying that it's very possible. Again, you don't have a crystal ball. You're not guaranteeing it. So when people, please, if it doesn't happen, he isn't guaranteeing it. But Gill has studied enough to know that he's in the ballpark. He has studied how many times that we've had these major biblical and historical events. And I'm talking from the days of the sign that Jonah saw, the sign, the preaching of Jonah, that in 40 days the Lord is going to destroy the city. And this happened the same time that the planet that it's believed that maybe the planet 7X went by. Also, Hezekiah's sundial, going back 10 steps or 10 degrees. And there's other accounts. So based on this, Gill has come up with an 8-year window unless you've adjusted that. It was 2013 to 2021. So are you saying, Gill, that this March, what days are you thinking Planet 7X is going to go by?
Well, it's not exactly thinking now. What I'm saying is when we look at the astronomy software, we have a lineup.
Okay.
Revelation 12:1 clearly tells us, it says, the moon at the foot of the woman. All right?
Okay.
Well, if it says moon, where do we look? We look in the sky. All right?
Okay.
And the woman it's talking about is Virgo. Well, when we take a look at the software, we know that Elijah is supposed to come back around Passover or on Passover. That's usually either March or April even.
Okay.
Also, the biblical records tells us that sometimes it causes seasonal changes.
All right.
It causes either severe droughts or early winter or late winter, something like that. Our seasons end up being changed because of this.
Extreme weather conditions, changing almost like seasons. The other day, it was 64 degrees here in mid-January. It felt like mid-May. I mean, it literally looked like mid-May. It felt like mid-May. I'm thinking, wow, is there something going on here?
Right. Today, where I'm at 75 degrees over here, So the AC's coming on.
Yeah.
And it's middle of winter. So we definitely have changing parts of our weather and seasonal changes globally.
So are you saying that this one, let me just read a little bit of it. It's Revelation 12. the Bible says, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Are you saying that this wonder in heaven is about to happen in March of this year?
What I am saying is that we have a lineup that we need to pay attention to.
Okay.
If it does happen, then we are awake. We're not asleep.
Okay.
Okay? So be a watchman and pay attention, see if there's any other clues that show up. Remember, the UN voted against Israel. That's biblical also. That was predicted over 2,000 years ago.
Yes, it was.
All right? So that happened just a few months ago. 2017 could be a very interesting year, starting again with this lineup. The word dragon in there was a common word used throughout time representing a comet. Okay?
Okay.
If you read closer, it says Virgo is the only constellation illuminated there. All right?
Okay.
The word Helios in Greek can mean multiple items. It can be a sun, it could be a comet, it could be a star, it could be anything that's illuminated.
Okay.
That's
okay.
what the word actually means. Illuminated.
Okay. I got it.
So you have, and she's pregnant. Well, the king planet was the same planet or star, if you wish, because from Earth it appears as a star. Was the same star that showed up for the birth of Yeshua. Well, March 15, 16, it's in the belly of Virgo.
The star.
Yes, exactly. Basically at her belly button where she would be pregnant.
Ready to be delivered.
Okay. Right. And so the Bible talks about also that daylight is made into night and night into daylight. Well, that's not an eclipse. Eclipse cannot bring you light into the night part of the sky. That is a 12-hour delay it's talking about. For midnight to be noon and noon into midnight, that's a 12-hour delay. Just like the time of Joshua's long day, he had 12 extra hours of daylight. Well, the opposite side of Earth at the time would have 12 extra hours of darkness. This is going to reoccur when this planet comes around.
So
now,
this womb of the woman of Virgo, there is going to be the star. There's a star, a bright, illuminating star. You're saying around March 15th or 16th, that's going to pass into the womb. We're going to be actually, because a lot of folks were hearing September 23rd, 2017. Is that wrong? Are they talking about something else?
It's my strong opinion. Yes, that is a misinterpretation of the way the Hebrews use the sky.
Okay.
The occult version, which is called the zodiac, is using the daytime skies. They use charts, and now today they use software because you can't see the stars during the day. And these people are turning off the sun. There's a setting you can turn off the sun in the software to where it looks like it's night, but it's the daytime sky. In September, you're looking at the daytime skies at Virgo. In March, you're looking at the night. That's why they're 6 months apart.
Okay.
All right? Because one, you're looking from the daytime. The other one, you're looking from the nighttime at the constellation Virgo. The Mezarah, which is what the Hebrew used throughout the scriptures was the nighttime skies where anybody can see the sign. Remember where it says that our Messiah returns mid of night, not mid of day,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Remember where the 10 virgins are having
midnight.
lamps, they're lit?
At midnight.
Right. It's not during noon, is it?
No, it's midnight.
Right. And this is after a 12-hour delay in Earth's rotation.
Okay. Okay. So
Okay.
so the September 23rd is a daytime constellational alignment, and you're saying that's opposite of this March 15th or 16th, which is a nighttime constellation alignment, which you believe, and what the point you're making here is fits more the biblical narrative of the coming of the Lord at midnight. You're literally looking at it from the point of view of where the constellation alignment is taking place.
Correct. And I also calculate in there that there's a 12-hour delay. Because
Okay.
this is viewed from Jerusalem at mid of night. So when you slow down Earth's rotation by 12 hours,
Okay.
and when you go, this is the point that I missed in 2016.
Okay.
When we go back and look at Joshua's long day, it says the moon was delayed by 12 hours as well.
Ah.
So when we come back and we delay the moon by 12 hours on 15:6, it puts it exactly at her foot,
Okay.
as the text is stating.
So
Now-
you're saying the Revelation 12 wonder in heaven, that a lot of folks think it's in September. You're saying, hold on a minute. In reality, it's really going to happen in March, and that there's also something coming into the womb that's going to be illuminated. And you're saying it's a star. Do you know what it is? I mean, have you identified it? Is it a comet? Is it?
No, it's Jupiter. It's Jupiter. It's the king planet.
It's
The king-
Jupiter.
The king
Okay.
planet moves into the belly of Virgo.
Okay. And that we know is going to happen. That is absolutely a fact, folks. It's going to happen.
Yes, she
Okay.
is giving birth to a king.
I got it.
That's why it's the king planet.
Okay.
And read the text carefully. It says only Virgo is illuminated. You can't do that with the sun, but you can do it with a comet's tail, because the tail points opposite of the sun, and the software model shows us that only Virgo is illuminated. Now, keep in mind that Jupiter has an orbit of 11.8 years.
All right.
It will not come back into Virgo's belly till another 11.8 years. Now, how do we make that line up with the Hebrew counting method?
All right. Help me on
They
that.
have they have 7 years. Every 7th year is a Sabbath year, and every 50th year is a Jubilee.
That's right.
Well, this is when he picks up his bride, and the bridemaid brings him to a place of safety in the wilderness, where they prepare for a wedding and trained. They have to be, they have to learn a song before entering. They have to learn. So that takes 3.5 years while they're in the wilderness, being trained or learning what they need to do for the wedding, which is 3.5 years later. Remember, Elijah and Moses show up at Passover alive again. We're going to see some real people. They are prophesying for 1,260 days. Then they're dead.
Then they raise from the dead.
Right. That's when the second taking away happens. But this one is to heaven. It said the dead are first, then the living.
I hear you. That's exactly what it says, folks.
And you can be anywhere in the world, and you're going to heaven. That's the second. But the first one is defined completely different. We read it carefully. You say the first taking away says a remnant. That's not everybody. You have to be in Jerusalem because you're following a Mekrah. A Mekrah in Hebrew means dry rehearsal. You're required to be in Jerusalem. That's why this sign is mid of night from the point of view of Jerusalem. Remember, the Messiah comes mid of night. He shows up in Jerusalem.
Absolutely.
Where does Elijah show up 3.5 days earlier than that? He shows up at Passover. Now, how did they know 2,000 years ago that this sign in heaven, which could land on any day as long as the stars are lining up, how did they know that this was exactly 3.5 days after Passover? Because 3.5 days prior to this is a full moon. Okay, how did they know this?
So you're saying this, and I haven't looked to see, I just haven't looked. I don't have the calendar in front of me. Passover this year is what?
It might be early. It might be early.
Because that depends on the moon. We have to have 2 witnesses, and we have to have 2 priests have to look up and say, yep, there it is, full moon. And so once that, am I right?
Well, also with this, it takes, you have to have the right barley. The barley has to be, it's called
The barley.
it has to be yeah, because you can't use the previous grain. You have to use that year grain, because that's why you're thanking him for this.
The barley harvest.
Right, exactly.
So you're saying Passover, so we're trying to figure out Passover based on the barley harvest, based on the full moon, confirmed by 2 priests, and 3.5 days later, then you have this event that's in the heavens.
Which is exactly the same amount of time that the 2 prophets lay dead. Remember, they prophesied. I mean, the word profess means to speak.
Yes.
They can't speak if they're dead, so they prophesied 1,260 days. Then they're dead for 3.5.
Okay.
So, which is 3.5 days longer there on earth than the people who are in the wilderness for 1,260 days. So that actually tells you that they're at Passover, but the bride and bridesmaid doesn't get taken to the wilderness till 3.5 days later, which is on this day, March 15, 16, where this lineup happens.
So the lineup that we're reading here, this wonder in heaven that John the Revelator, a 94-year-old apostle, exiled on the Isle of Patmos off the coast of Greece, is getting this revelation from Jesus Christ, and he sees a wonder in heaven. This event he sees of the star alignment is going to happen March 15th or 16th.
Now, keep in mind, a wedding, because you have to feed your guests at a wedding, you cannot feed them on a Sabbath or a Jubilee because you're conserving food on those years. All right?
Okay.
So it can only be the following March or April. It would be the Passover, which would be when it would occur. Well, we're looking for some time in the future, let's say, the following March after Sabbath or a Jubilee in the next 50 years. Does this line up again? We have no lineups that ever occur. This is the only one that occurs on a Passover right after Jubilee.
That's, in other words, we're not going to get to see this constellational lineup again. This is it?
This is it. For at least I checked the next 50 years. There is no lineup after the following March of a Sabbath or Jubilee. Now, remember where it says in the Bible, all will be fulfilled before this generation dies out. That's all Israel formed. They're already 84 years old, if you count in the Hebrew way of counting. They can't go another 50 years. They're all dead. This generation will have died out.
Yeah, I know. And there's been, and just so that you know, Gil, I know you know, but so that the listeners out there will know, because that there are a lot of different starting points that different theologians and Bible scholars of eschatology, when you start talking about the fig tree generation, we call it. When does it start? Well, some people say, well, at the Balfour Declaration of 1917. Some say, no. It was when the United Nations voted and made Israel a state, actually on November 29th, 1947. Others say, no. It was when Israel became a nation on May the 14th, 1948. Others say, no. It's when Jerusalem was unified during the Six-Day War in 1967. So, and then you have the debate, is a generation 40 years? Is a generation 70 years? Is a generation 80 years? Or some would say is a generation, the man's allotted days that God told Moses, 120 years. So where do you start? Where does it end? That is still up for debate. But either way, no matter where you start or end, we're in this generational period somewhere. I mean, Gil, wouldn't you agree?
Without a doubt. But I would just suggest people view the Bible from a point of view that is Hebraic or
Of
Hebrew
course.
in its nature.
Of
because
course.
that's who the authors were.
Of course. I agree with you 1,000%. So that's why you're adamant about the Hebrew calendar and following also the constellations. And I also know you follow the current events that are related. For instance, you just brought up Donald Trump, the potential fact that he may go in and take Mosul back from ISIS, fully liberating it, which was the ancient city of Nineveh. I mean, that's huge, especially if it ties into your dates prior to this March 15th, 16th. So you're saying sometime around February 4th.
Well, unless we get the reason why the timing is not pulled out of nowhere, we're using this mark in the sky.
Right.
And it says that we won't be asleep. That means if you're looking for it, because he's trained you to look at the sky for the moon, for the calendar. He's given us a sign in Revelation. He's trained us. That's what McRaws are and everything. They're dry rehearsals, and he's telling us how to tell the calendar. He didn't say look at the Gregorian calendar.
No.
It wasn't even there yet.
No.
He uses the skies. So he gets you used to looking at the skies for signs.
Okay.
And since I cannot tell the future, I can only say it greatly concerns me. Pay attention to what's happening on the news and pay attention to what's happening in the skies. These next until March 15th. If we don't see anything, then I don't see any other signs that would line up that would match the biblical record. And
unless this event that we're looking at, this wonder in the heavens, even though it would be let's say happening, what will take place during that, unless we're missing something that needs to happen yet, and that this is just the wonder in heaven during this fig tree generation. I mean, you have to know that,
yeah.
you know it's not going to line up. These stars won't line up like this again. That you know.
Yeah, I think that there's a parallel to something that he said. He said for a wicked and adulterous generation, there'll be one sign, the sign of Jonah.
Yeah.
I think that we do have a world that's wicked and adulterous, and if this is a double innuendo, that because there's two signs for Jonah. One was the whale, the other one was not. I think both the pages of Jonah are pertaining to the return of the Messiah. The first one was when he was going to be resurrected.
Yep.
And the second one about the 40 days is an indication, was the warning to the wicked also, that this is going to be coming next. Now, if we're right, then that means we're only going to have a short warning.
Right. Well, go ahead.
Otherwise, telescopes would have given us advance warning of 16 years from the edge of our solar system. And I'm talking about amateur astronomers been able to warn us 16 years ahead of time.
Okay.
But we know it's close because the orbits of comets are warped, our seasons are changed, our magnetic north is moving at 12 times its normal rate. The tilt of the Earth has another 4 degrees tilt to it because it wobbles.
Yeah,
okay?
It does. It does. Yep.
All of these changes are not done by cars warming up the atmosphere. It doesn't affect the sun. The sun is acting extremely strange.
Right. You are right.
All the planets are warming up.
Yes, you are right.
And the orbits of normal asteroids are being warped, and now they're crossing Earth's path, and that's why we're seeing more and more meteors entering our atmosphere, because they are perturbed. They're
being warped
from the normal path.
So you're saying, and you know what? This is fascinating, folks. Seriously, because Gill is bringing forth everything that we're already hearing. We're hearing of the magnetosphere being moved. And Gil, I don't know if you've seen BP Earthwatch's video where it literally shows an incredible movement in the magnetosphere. We also Dutch Sense, who captured it also. And now there's even some international organizations that have confirmed this. And Mike from around the world also talks about the waves of energy. So I want to ask you, what is your take? We'll come back to this. March 5th, write it down, folks. March 15th and 16th. Can we, before I ask you about waves of energy, can we be able to look up in the heavens and see this constellational wonder in the heavens? Can we look up there and see it on March 15th or 16th?
Yes, at midnight.
At midnight.
It'll be right in the center of the skies looking south.
Okay. Then at midnight, which time? Jerusalem midnight? Where?
Well, remember, if this planet approaches, we will, about 3.5 days earlier than that,
We'll see it?
Earth is too close to the plasma tail. They'll have to turn off the generators globally. So Passover is going to be held with oil lamps and candles because there'll be no power that night. So the world is not going to be there will be no TV crews or radio crews announcing Elijah and Moses has arrived in Jerusalem. This is going to be a private meeting because there won't be power on the earth. They're going to have to shut down the power plant because Earth is too close to the plasma tail. It's like an EMP wave.
So you're saying there's going to be a global mass blackout, not because of mankind, but because of the plasma tail will be just too close. It will affect us.
Right. For about 3 days, we'll have that.
Wow! And oh, by the way, folks, we've had 3 days of darkness before. It was one of the plagues of Egypt. We've had this before.
And
okay. All right. So all right. Now let me ask you a question. Let's hold that for a moment. Let's just put that right there. I want to welcome all of you that are here. This is Gill Broussard, an astronomer. If you're watching at my website, my son keeps putting his website up on the screen, his Facebook page. He also has a DVD out, folks. Is that your website where that's available, Gil? I think it's planetx.org or something. .net. Okay. Planet X.
No, it's planet7x.net.
Sorry. Planet7x.net. You can go there, and he has a DVD. It's an excellent film they put together. That's where you could purchase that if you wanted to watch that from home and get a whole. He's got all the charts and graphs. All this stuff is available. Check out his website, planet7x.net. Now, also, folks, Gil is from Louisiana. He's from Louisiana, and he really has dedicated his life to trying to help understand the signs in the heavens. And the Bible says that men's hearts would fail them, Gil, for fear, for looking after those things that are coming on the earth. So I want to ask you about the 5 waves of energy that Mike from around the world has introduced to us really about 4 to 5 years ago. What is your take on the 5 waves of energy?
Well, I have a different take than what they. I read the article where he said that quadruple exploded 50 million light years away, and this is the energy that's finally reaching us, hitting Earth.
That's NASA. That's what NASA says.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Okay.
If it would be 50 million light years away, it would be a hell lot bigger than quadruple super. It'd be like 1,000 times greater.
Okay.
You'd have a nice star in the sky, like some sort of nebula, that would be extremely huge. Which to me it's just mission impossible because the light and the plasma would dissipate by the time it reached here. If if we're talking about a distance of 50 million light years away. And I have something that's quite a little bit more simpler and probably more practical. I promise. If a person uses something that's called Occam's razor, when you have two different opinions and one is simpler than the other, go with the simpler.
Well, when you're talking to Pastor Paul Begley, please go simpler, okay? Because stay simple, all right?
We have a model. We have the orbital path.
Okay.
We have also a given date in Revelation 12:1.
Yes.
Okay. The orbital path was given to us by the Asian astronomers, the Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, because they saw it for 26 months. They documented it. And each kingdom had at least 10 astronomers working for the royal houses. So that's at least 30 astronomers that saw it for the Asians.
Now that was China, Japan, and what's the other one?
Korea.
Okay.
And when we plotted the information, I was the first to plot the information.
Yes, you were.
It gave us an orbit with an entry and exit of about roughly 150 to 152 days separation.
Okay.
That gave us the 5 months, and this object was on Earth's planetary plane. It crosses Earth's path twice.
Yes.
Well, so we have its highway that it's passing on and driving on, all right?
All right.
And it's elliptical. Now we have a given date that Revelation is talking about, possibly March 15th. So when we reverse the model from that point, and we go back to the point that NASA was talking about, that they saw a light in the sky, that was December 27th, 2004. What's interesting is Pluto was very close to our planet, and it was downstream of the tail. Well, if you remember when that little comet passed by, I think it was Mars, and it lit up Mars. I sent you some pictures of it.
Yes, I do.
Okay, that was a plasma discharge. Well, and that was from a small little rock in the sky that did that to Mars. Now we're looking at a planet that's 14 times or so larger than Pluto. I think there was a discharge against Pluto of massive proportions.
Wow.
And that flash radiated towards the Earth. And what's interesting, the position of Earth in December were the moon, because it said it bounced off the moon, hitting our atmosphere, lighting us up at night. That's exactly what you see in the model. You have an exact replication of what they're talking about.
So do you know that when you just said that this event happened December 27th, 2004, you do know that the day before that, December 26, 2004, is the mega earthquake of 9.1 or 9.2 in Indonesia that brought a tsunami that killed 250,000 people. Did this event bring that earthquake and tsunami?
It's possible. I can't rule it out, but
that's fascinating.
You're going to have different waves of energy, different types of energy.
Okay.
So, and it will affect the Earth in different ways.
Okay.
Now, some of this energy went further out into space, and because of the Voyager and the Pioneer probes, we know that space gets thicker after a certain area. So these waves, when it hits space that's thicker, would have focused back towards the sun. It's like hitting a parabolic mirror, kind of. It would have focused it back towards the sun, because Earth is kind of like in a fish. Consider it in a sphere, like a fish bowl, that we have these multiple thick layers of space. Well, as these layers are hitting these thicker layers, they're bouncing back and they're focused back to the sun. And that's what we're receiving right now. These extra 5 energy waves are coming back at us from that, coming back to the focal point.
So when Mike from around the world talks about the 5 waves of energy, and I know you've heard that, and he says it is from Planet X. Now that took me 4 years to get him to confirm that, but he says yes, it is from Planet X, and he talks of Planet X as a binary system. Okay, is he? Are we still talking about the same thing, or it's just a different verbiage? What is your take on that?
My information disproves that this is linked to a binary because its orbital distance that it goes out only 360 years. It's not far enough to pick up to circle a secondary sun like a binary star. So its orbit is entirely too short for that as far as the distance.
Okay.
Now, even if it was connected to a sun, orbiting a sun, and that the sun was coming in, all right, the given path given to us by the Asian astronomers shows us that it's a simple elliptic path, just like a asteroid or a comet. All right.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'd have like a warped helical path or going around the sun. It would not be a elliptical path. It can't. It wouldn't. So we have just a simple item here. It's a very large comet/planet, if you want to call it that. Because I think it would have to be a whole new category.
Okay.
And it roughly has a 360-year orbit that's very elliptical.
Yeah.
And it crosses Earth's path, an entry and exit. In modern day, it would be about 152 and 1/8 day separation. And I just find it extremely interesting that this March event that's marked in the calendar matches the data of the Asian. This would be around the time frame that the Asians are pointing at.
Okay. So March.
So we have multiple lineups here with the text.
Yeah. So March 15th, 16th might be a very, very prophetic time. It could very well be when the very sign wonder in the heavens seen by John, we may actually get to see that in March 15th or 16th. And so I think that's quite fascinating. We're going to be looking up into the constellations, looking up into the sky, see what this is, and see if we see that. And I think, again, this is fascinating information, Gil. It really, really is. And I appreciate the humbleness that Gill Broussard brings to this. He brings a very humbleness. Very few people are willing to just go out and say, look, this is something that's going to happen in the heavens. There's a lot of other pieces and parts moving here on the earth, some current world events, but certainly a lot of these events that have happened are quite extraordinary. What's going on with world powers, wars, rumors of wars, the rise of radical Islam, the election just held in America, the effect of it across the globe with democracies, how close we were to the beast. I mean, Gil, seriously, I'm telling you, we're still close, but I'm just saying, the New World Order was just like on the doorstep, on the threshold here. And I'm not saying it's been pushed back a gazillion years, but it's all in prophecy. It's just the timing is all working out. Let me ask you a question here. When we look at the asteroids, you're saying the asteroids are being warped, and that's why we're seeing more and more asteroids, meteors, fireballs. But what about the pressure from the waves of energy? The pressure affecting earthquakes and volcanoes. What is your take on that?
Well, it's a similar pressure, just like the sun when it pulsates plasma out and it affects us. These waves would have the same effect.
Okay.
Right? Because they're plasma. So it moves starts to collapse our magnetic field, and our magnetic field has just like a motor, it creates torque in the inner part of our core that causes us to spin. So anything that goes against our magnetic field will cause torquing issues that might cause earthquakes.
Does CERN play any role in this? Does CERN got any effect with anything that's going, especially with the magnetosphere?
I have no idea. I'm not really too concerned about CERN at all. It's in its own little realm. I think that they created CERN to look for a new particle that they could make a weapon to help destroy incoming meteors. Because a nuclear weapon, if you have large meteors, a nuclear weapon is not strong enough.
Wow.
It doesn't have, so they would need something that would have capabilities of something in the magnitudes of thousands of times larger than what a nuclear weapon could do today.
You know, Anthony Patch. Anthony
That's
Patch.
what I think they were doing.
Yeah, Anthony Patch said that is definitely part of it, to create a weapon that's even greater than the nuclear power. Now, you do, and I know you know this, but the White House under President Obama last January opened what they call the Armageddon Office. And then in the fall of this past year, an executive order was made by President Obama. And that executive order was to prepare in case of a space weather event, that the President of the United States would have full authority and power to confiscate food, water, shelter, bunkers, anything and everything they would need through FEMA and Department of Homeland Security. This was a very broad brush executive order, and he starts talking about space weather event. So do you think, and then I've heard Vladimir Putin said we should be turning our nukes and rockets and weapons toward the heavens to shoot down incoming asteroids. So are we going to see an increase in asteroid activity, and are we going to see a deep impact?
We've already seen a large increase in asteroids coming in. Will that trend continue? That just depends if there's asteroids in the area that would fulfill that. There's a high probability because the orbits are warped. What used to miss Earth is now crossing Earth's path. And if Earth is in that area when it's crossing, then yes, we're going to have some. Could they be large? Yes. Some of them are very large. Whether or not they will hit us, I can't give any conclusive.
Yeah, and isn't it kind of true that NASA seems to they have predicted successfully every meteor that has missed us, but they have not ever told us of a meteor that is going to hit us. And can you help me understand that?
Remember when that meteor that hit us that went over Russia?
Yes.
And they said, it came from the backside of the sun. That's why we couldn't see it. And the public bought that. Well, that's hogwash.
Yeah.
Because remember, Earth is spinning around
the sun.
Earth is rotating around the sun. Okay, so 3 months earlier, even we could have seen its orbital path. Remember, a meteor has an elliptical orbit, so it doesn't stay stationary behind the sun like some people say about Planet X. Oh, it's behind it. It's only behind the sun for like a week or so, or at the most. All right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to see it. It's either to the right or to the left, unless it's being cloaked, which I strongly believe that's what our lasers and our space program that Reagan put up there is used for cloaking this. So, and the Bible alludes, if Jonah's 40-day warning is for us, that means we shouldn't see it before that. Possibly we might see it for the 40 days if it parallels. But
Antarctica, Gil, because we're going to run out of time. Antarctica. We got world leaders going to Antarctica to see something that's very hush-hush. They don't talk about what they're going down there for. I have Steve Quayle as my guest tomorrow, I'm going to ask him, Steve, why in the world are they going to Antarctica? Could my question to you would be, could Antarctica be an advantage point if you had a high-powered telescope in Antarctica? Is that where, are they going down there to take a peek at Planet X? Is my question. Is there a better advantage point, it being in the South Pole, to maybe spot Planet X?
If money is not an object, then yes, it is the best vantage point because Earth is tilted, okay?
Okay.
And the South Pole region tilts towards the south of the universe. Remember, polar south looking straight down is not south of the universe. That's called nadar. Universal south is pointing towards Sagittarius. Well, you have more nighttime skies, hours on the south side of the poles looking towards the south of the universe. So that would be the ideal vantage point to get the maximum time to look at. And it's also a good place to isolate information because it can't lead there unless you go through one person at the communication bay to be able to, in other words, it's very easily censored.
So, you have to understand, and so this is a tremendous answer, because I've read another article where a man, and I was reading a scientist from the year, I can't remember, seemed like it was the year 2004, who said if a person was in an airplane 36,000 feet in the air and was flying over South America and had a high-powered telescope and the sky was beautifully clear, he might be able to get a peek at Planet X, okay? So I thought to myself, wow. And he said this in 2004. And now I'm thinking, wow, so here we are. It's 2017. We got world leaders going to Antarctica, which is a better location than South America, in an airplane, a stationary base. We know the Nazis built a military base in Antarctica, and in 1947, the United States. This is documented. These are from once were classified documents have been released. 1947, we sent an aircraft carrier down there. We sent destroyers down there to go and try to blow up this Nazi base, and that was 1947. So there's no doubt in my mind there is locations down there, and probably a high-powered observatory that has the perfect angle at Planet X, and it might be very possible, and you've answered it, that reason world leaders are slipping off in the middle of the night and going to Antarctica is maybe they're going down there to get a peek at Planet X.
It is a possibility. Put it this way, we have enough points of reference that we're seeing today. Remember our Bible says that earthquakes would climb so high that it would mimic the pains of a woman giving birth, where it goes into like an exponential growth.
Right.
We're seeing that.
Yeah, we are.
It's quite clear. We're seeing birds die, fish die at extraordinary rates.
Yes, we are.
Our magnetic north is moving at 12 times as north. What affects a magnetic field except another magnetic field? Okay, this planet is affecting our magnetic north. It's even changing our tilt of Earth by 4 degrees. Okay, this is scientific data I'm quoting.
I know it is.
It's not hearsay. All right?
Right.
We have something that is affecting us, the orbits of comets, the orbits of asteroids, our sun, and our planets. And it's inside our solar system. But yet, there is no sighting that's valid right now because the object is cloaked. We have the ability through lasers in space to cloak an object. I show a short video of that on my Planet 7X on YouTube, on how that is possible.
Yeah, you're saying to create a cloak, to create a mirage, to hide things that could be seen otherwise, using a deceptive technology, which we do have. The military's had it for quite some time, where they could literally have an army in a field and they could hide them, and the people could sit there and look right at it and don't see them. That technology does exist, and you do a great job showing that in one of your YouTube videos. Folks, check out his website at planet7x.net. That's planet7x.net. Also, you go to Gill Broussard's Facebook page.
YouTube, also Planet 7X.
So all of these things are available. Gill, I'm going to have to ask you. You got to come back right before March 15th or 16th, or on March 15th or something, to give us some kind of idea of what we might be getting ready to see. I'd like to put that invitation out there to you.
Okay, that'd be great. You can I might be in Jerusalem.
That's all. Well, if you are, we'll still get you on through Skype. Okay, I'll have Heidi arrange that. So yes, we would love to get you might have a front row seat on this, and so we'd like to find out what it is the wonder that's in heaven that was spoken of by John the Revelator as he received the revelation in Revelation chapter 12. Wow. I mean, this is exciting times. There's no question about it. And Gill, I want to thank you for coming on and being our guest today. I mean, this was really informative. And again, folks, Gill Broussard is the leading expert when it comes to Planet X and how it ties biblically and historically to the events that have been taking place on the earth. Gill, I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank your wife, Heidi, for the emails. And it's a pleasure. I'll see you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.